you don't exist. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look at better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheap again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the fourth part of What If Deku and Hero Academia joins One Punch Man. Special note, this fanfic is written in a masterpiece of Spark 3 on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Inheritor of the tank top master, tank toppers, Shoji. Shoji followed the giant man closely into a large building. Tank top master suggested that he wait behind him so he could properly introduce him and how he looks to the rest of the tank toppers. Shoji adjusted himself to be directly behind the hulking man, making sure to keep his arms out of sight. The man stopped and suddenly yelled out for all the tank toppers to gather in front of him. Listen up you all, we got a new recruit to the tank toppers today courtesy of the Hero Association itself. He is behind me right now because he has certain defects that make him not normal, but he is still an ally and I expect you all to treat him as such. He is a fellow follower of the tank top and any who follow the tank top way is welcome here. Do I make myself clear? Shoji heard the chorus of yes, sir, before he was gestured by tank top master to step up in front of the group of people. Upon stepping up he immediately saw why the group was named the way they were. Every single person in that gym had a tank top on. There were several men and one woman at the time. Judging by their body language he was definitely an irregular sight to them, as several of them had tensed or balled fists almost like he was going to attack them at any moment. He tried a traditional greeting to show that he was not a threat to them. Hello, my name's Mizo Shoji. My hero name is Tentacle Hero, Tentacle. I know my mutations can be cause of concern, but I can assure you all that I have no motive to hurt or attack any of you. How did you get like that, young man? If you don't mind me asking. A man with a white afro and white tank top with spectacles covering his eyes asked, one hand rubbing his chin with a hand as he stared at the teen, analyzing him. I was simply born like this, it was a mutation from birth, Shoji replied, giving half of the truth reason. As if he went on about quirks and things of that nature they wouldn't understand most of it. Show them what else you can do, tank top master said. Shoji assumed he was referring to his power and nodded, first showing that he could stretch his limbs far beyond the norm of a regular person, and then to top it off when those extended appendages started to take shape into hands, mouths, eyes and even feet. This caused quite the commotion from the 10 individuals huddled around with sharp gasps of surprise and some becoming even more skeptical of him. He then retracted his extended appendages back to their original state. There you have it. I know it may be weird for now, but you'll need to quickly get over it as he will be with us for some time. Now who would like to be the new recruit's chaperone to show him the roots on how the tank tops operate? Nobody moved or said anything, and Shoji couldn't blame them. He was considered a freak here at best, and at worst he was considered a monster, and from what he's heard from Ida they kill monster for living. So getting close to someone that could resemble these monsters could stir up bad memories or worst hostility. Oh, it's rare for you to get involved in anything, tank top philosopher tank master said. Shoji looked up to see a figure further in the back. He wore a tank top like the others that was black, in black jeans, with a full beard and flowy black hair. He was present with the other 10 in front, so he never noticed the man, but he walked forwards towards the group with a large book in his hand. The title being Tank Top Prophecy, and Origin of the Tank Top. Did that book tell you something about him? The whitebeard man said sarcastically as others began to laugh. For those whole through the world through science will never understand, Tank Doctor. This boy is more special than you may think, and I am not speaking of his mutation. Tank Philosopher said cryptically, silencing the laughter around him as he spoke. Well, whatever the reason, make sure you teach him properly, and he is your problem if he brings shame to the tank top. Everyone else back to what you were doing, Tank Master said. The group slowly started to disperse, leaving only Tank Philosopher and Shoji alone to walk over to one of the workout machines further away from everyone else. Thank you for taking me on, sir. No need for formalities, you can just call me Tank Philosopher. Besides, I wasn't lying. You could be more special than you or they know. How so? As you can see by the people around you, in the name of our group that we almost idolize the tank top. I was actually curious about that myself really, but how does that concern me? Well, people don't know this, but the tank top holds special abilities since its creation, offering great strength, speed, healing, and other abilities through the ages. He opened the book to Shoji, and to his surprise it was completely blank. For me, I can see the hidden text within this book is tales of a legend that unlocked the full extent of the tank top's power. It's what we as an organization stand to achieve. But the legend I read says the person was incapable of wearing anything else but tank tops, and through that solidarity he was able to unlock its secrets and power. That's where you and your unique mutation comes in. You may be the one destined to achieve what even Tank Master cannot, and I will do everything in my power to help you achieve that purpose. Shoji was completely stunned by this revelation. He didn't know to think if this man, and by extension this group, was a bunch of psychopaths, or that could something like tank top power be actually real in this world they're in. Lucky before he could formulate a reply on all of that, he was tapped on the shoulder, and turned around to see the one girl in the group. "Hi, I'm Tank Girl," she said, holding out her hand for him to shake. Which he did. "Sorry about the guys back there, they have no reason to judge others, especially with how weird they act, especially the one you're talking to now. So what rank did the association assign you?" "Oh, they gave me C class rank, 91. "I see, well that's close to where I am actually. I'm C class rank, 81 a spar, that is if you don't mind me taking him away from you, philosopher." "That is fine, I'm curious about his abilities myself, actually." "Great, so what do you say, want to try and take me on?" "Sure, I guess," Shoji said hesitantly as he was pulled towards an octagon-type cage similar to the one UFC fighters use. Invisible to the world, Zombieman, Takoyami, Toru. True to the hero's word, the group traveled towards a restaurant. It wasn't very crowded and mostly abandoned by barring like the 10 or so other people in the place. The lack of people was a blessing to the two teens that accompanied Zombie-Mans, as their entire journey to this place were full of people staring at them. Mostly Takoyami, but Toru also got a few stares of people that were passing by. Some of the younger individuals were a little bold and tried to see if she was a trick or not and attempted to touch her leg while passing by, or people pulled on the back of Takoyami's head thinking it was a mask, forcing him to restrain Dark Shadow from doing anything foolish and causing a scene. While in the restaurant they still got stares from some of the patrons, but most just ignored them and continued with their meal. They approached the counter with a single male employee dressed in service wear. He took a momentary look at the group and addressed Zombie Man directly. "Yo, Zombie Man, interesting company you have today. You usually come here alone?" "Yeah, well, as you can see my company isn't normal, so here's a good place where we won't be bothered much," Zombieman said with a hint of suspicion in his voice. Picking up on what he meant, the man nodded and took out 3 menus. "No problem. I'm sure no one here gonna bother you. Most of the people here are our regulars, they know the rules. I assume a booth near the back." "That would be good, next to a window if you can find one," Zombieman said. "Alright, right this way." He flashed a small smile while leading the group towards a booth near the back of the place. It had the appearance of an old-fashioned diner, with a bar in center and booths on the sides. Making their way in the booth, both teens got in on one side facing the hero opposite of them. The waiter then gave them the menus and both teens looked at it somewhat perplexed. Most of the food on it were familiar to them, but certain things stuck out that didn't make sense or was alien to them. Deciding on the more traditional objects, Takoyami ordered a burger with fries while Toru ordered a seafood pasta. Zombie Man only got a coffee. "You're not hungry?" the invisible girl asked. "No, not really, I don't get hungry often," he stated. "I assume you want to discuss something important with us," Takoyami said immediately. A little taken back by her classmate's inquisitive question, berated him about being polite and thankful for the meal before she was caught off by Zombie Man. "He's right. I do have something I wish to discuss with you all before we proceed. How do you figure? Given the location and the supposed rule of this place, I assume it's an ask-no-questions establishment. You wouldn't take us here just for us, so we would feel more comfortable. If that were the case, we could have just ate at the association. By leaving the association and coming to a more secluded part of town, it must be something you want to be as secret as possible." The hero just smirked at the kid as he went on. "You're pretty attentive for a kid your age. What you said is completely true. I do have some things I want to ask you too. I hope you both answer with complete honesty. This first question I would like to ask you both. Do you have any connection to the House of Evolution?" Zombie Man paid close attention to the bird's face. There is a lot people can learn from body language, facial expressions, and eye movements when you ask someone a question. He would focus on both of them, but being how the invisible girl is well invisible, he couldn't tell anything from her face. But her sleeves could tell some of a story, but nothing really concrete. Judging from the birdie boy's face, he didn't have the slightest idea what he was talking about, and his thoughts were confirmed when he spoke to answer the question. "I have never heard of that place. We're not from around here, so I hope you don't think we're affiliated with such a place," Takoyami said. Yeah, why would you think we were included with something like that, whatever it is? Toril said, presumably making a gesture with her hands that no one could see. It's not a place but an organization. They wanted to evolve humanity by experimenting with monsters and animals to create better humans, and then you two show up after I lost all trace of them some months ago. It didn't help that the association somehow got a hold of more information when you guys came around, he said, sitting back in his booth and began to stare out the window. So what is your guys' story? And I mean real story. If there was an accident that mutated a bunch, I'm sure it would be impossible to cover up even by the association. Takoyami looked to Toru, who looked back at him. They whispered to each other for a bit before both turned to face Zombie Man again, and Takoyami began to speak. I don't know what the Hero Association told you, but we are under strict orders from them to keep some details secret. When we say we aren't from around here, we're not referring to this city, state, or even continent. We're not from this earth. I know it may be hard to, Takoyami said. No, I believe you. We had a group of aliens attacked here a while ago. They destroyed most of a city as soon as they arrived. Were you with them? He asked casually. No, we got here by different means, Takoyami replied, rubbing the back of his neck. Wait, what aliens are real here? Can I see them? What happened with the city? Why did they attack? Toru said explosively, almost rising out of her seat and waving her arms around. Well, they all died during the attack because someone was jumpy. We never got a reason for why they attacked in the first place. And what happened to a city? Heh, you guys really are not from around here. You were just in a city when the aliens arrived. They completely bombed and destroyed it, 98% of it, he said, turning away. Hearing that made the bubbly girl demeanor completely drop and sadden. Oh, she said, some pain in her voice. How many people were injured? Takoyami asked. Not many, mostly casualties that day. Not many survivors. It was a surprise attack, and Metal Knight's buildings is the only reason the Hero Association is still up and running, he said, a little too casually for Takoyami's taste, but he said nothing. We had similar calamity happen where we are from. Nothing as bad as a whole city being destroyed, but multiple cities took heavy damage and multiple heroes were killed. How did the public take about what happened with the city? Toru asked with morose tone. The usual, I suppose. The public outcry was met with equal pushback from the association, press relief team, and of course Sweet Mask. Together they managed to rally the people even more in the association's favor, even managing to convince them to turn a city into a fortress city that it is now. This shocked the teens. A whole city just up and disappeared, and the public still managed to support the heroes here. They didn't know if whoever manages the media team were just that good, or were the people here just accustomed to that type of damage. Back from where they're from, the heroes' agencies would be completely disbanded if that happened. Wait, you said this event happened just a few months ago, and you all managed to build that base in such a short time? Toru asked, flabbergasted. Huh. Oh no, it didn't take that long at all, only 10 days from what the association says. What? That's impossible, Toru replied, a bit too loudly, drawing eyes from some patrons in the diner. She immediately apologized and sat back down. It's true, Metal Knight fixed the entire thing in only 10 days. He has an army of machines at his beck and call. He must be a marvel at engineering to design something so quickly, Takoyami said. He sure is, he murmured as their food finally came over to them, the waiter setting each down. Before eating, however, Takoyami had a burning question to ask about the event. You said that someone was jumpy and had dispatched the aliens before you could get answers. Who was it? Putting the packets of sugar he was pouring into his coffee down, he simply answered. Handsomely Sweet Mask, a class hero number. He may look sweet and innocent from the media, but from what I saw that day, he's definitely hiding something more sinister underneath. The mask part of his name isn't just for show, I reckon. Takoyami nodded, mentally keeping the name in memory of people not to cross, and with that said and done, they all began to eat and converse on softer topics. You're different and you're normal, Watchdog Man, Asui. Asui was just finishing being taken on a small tour around the area Watchdog Man set up near the metro. There were some shops and clothing stores around, as you would expect. There were some small parks that kids would play on, surrounded by a walk area so adults could walk or jog around it. The clothes in the stores and what people wore were similar enough to the world she came from, but almost all of the brand names were completely new to her, and she pondered on what passed off as cool or popular here. If Mina were she would probably be thinking of the very same thing if she hadn't figured it out already. The tour came to a stop with them arriving back towards where Watchdog Man was still seated in front of the station. His suit was noticeably a bit dirtier than when they last left him, and Dahlia turned to address her as her tour came to a close. That should be about all you need to know of the surrounding area, just in case you get bored standing around so often next to him. You could also help people out around the city yourself as well. C-class heroes often come here to get some free points with helping with more trivial matters like helping across the street or carrying their bags, finding lost objects or people, although they often get help from Watchdog Man if they can't find them in a good time frame. She handed Asui the device from early that had Watchdog Man's GPS on it as well as some snacks for Watchdog Man himself, and almost proceeded to walk away before stopping and turning to the hero again. Before I go, we should probably share contact info, so if anything happens to you can call me for help, as unlikely as that may sound, she said, holding up her phone. No, you're right, you never know what could happen. And if it would be good to have someone close by that I can call just in case I need help. Froppy replied by getting her out of her pocket. Once the two girls exchanged numbers, they both said their goodbyes and Dahlia began to walk away, leaving only Asui and Watchdog Man. As she turned around to look at the hero again, who was curiously side-eyeing her the entire time, she tried to make some light small talk, but he just laid on the podium motionless. Every now and again he would launch off the podium, presumably to another attack, and his suit would come back dirtier and dirtier each time with different colored stains on it. Evie returned, however, she would hear a sniffing sound near her but couldn't find the source of it. Sometime later, a group of individuals began to approach them holding buckets of water and spray bottles. One guy in the group greeted her as the others moved on towards the podium that Watchdog Man sat on. Hi, you must be Froppy, the hero that is training under Watchdog Man? Correct. Yeah, that's me. And how did you know that I was training under him? Froppy questioned. We are from the Q City Committee as well. Dahlia told us about it. My name is Jeff. We're here for Watchdog Man's podium cleaning. Mind helping us out while you're here? Podium cleaning. And sure, I guess. As they made their way towards Watchdog Man, Jeff explained. As you may have been made aware, Watchdog Man does a lot for this city, so we try to repay him as much as possible. We help keep his base of operations clean and spotless so it doesn't get overrun with blood from the monster he fights. That statement stopped Froppy cold. Did you just say blood? Looking at the girl quizzically, he answered. Yeah, blood, you know, from the monsters. Aren't you a hero as well? I would advise a different profession if blood makes you squeamish, he said casually. But doesn't that mean he's? She thought back to what Ida said when they first arrived about how heroes here killed on a regular basis to stop monsters, and her question died in her throat. I see was all she could say as she looked at the podium, which had some smudges and marks here and there, some dripping from the man's paws itself. So is that a no for helping out then? Jeff questioned. Shaking herself out of her thoughts, she shook her head and helped the group washing the podium. Oddly, the Watchdog Man turned so he could still keep her in his line of sight, which everyone there recognized as strange or abnormal behavior for him. After a couple of minutes they were done and began to leave, thanking Froppy for helping out and wishing her luck as a hero. With them gone, it was just her and Watchdog Man again, who was still side-eyeing her as he laid on the podium. She tried to ask what was wrong, but he didn't reply and only continued to side-eye her. Remembering what she was told about his personality, she altered his approach. Is there something wrong? Speak. She thought it was stupid and wouldn't work, but to her surprise he spoke to her monotone and straightforward. You're not normal. A short and matter-of-fact reply. At first she thought of the irony of that statement given what he is, but he could be referring to her quirk. She was a mutant-type quirk user and he may have smelled differently than everyone else here. Can you maybe elaborate further? Speak, she said again. Your smell, it's different, like you're not human but also not a monster, he said. So he could tell. Well, and kinda part frog as well. See, she said while extending her tongue out, stretching much further than a regular human could. I'm not a threat to you or anyone around, promise. Speak. When Watchdog Man didn't say anything, she tried again but still nothing. Her hand brushed over the packet of snacks Dahlia gave her and took out a treat and threw it at him that he caught and began to chew on. I see, was all the dogman said as he continued to enjoy his treat, but his eyes left the girl and began to stare forward, and his tail began visibly relaxed, some which was as good a sign as any that he believed her for now. Mentally sighing to herself, she really does attract weird company, but it was always charming in a way, she thought as she sat next to Watchdog Man. Grow a backbone, metal bat, Coda. Coda was surprised by the attitude the hero in front of him displayed. Given his aesthetic, he thought the guy would be some sort of bully or miscreant, but here he was getting ridiculed by his sister and seemingly crumbling under her gaze as she called him out for being. Took a moment to look towards Coda as she let go of her brother. Hi, this idiot's little sister Zenko. And you are? Me. Hello, and Coda. I'm going to be working under your brother for some time. I hope you don't mind, he said softly. I see, so that's why you were late. But I hate to say this, you might as well be wasting your time working under him. My brother is nothing but a screw-up. Other than his strength, he doesn't have much to teach anyone. If anything, you can teach him something in manners. Rubbing his hand behind his head, he slightly flushed from the praise. To her brother's annoyance, I ain't that bad, Zenko. I know how to behave. Bad complained. Ha, barely. You still dress like a thug and carry that bat around everywhere you go, she said, signaling to his gray bat that he carried around. She took another look at Koda and after looking at him, noticed that his head was sort of weird looking. Is that how you normally look, or is that just the mask you have on your head? Well, no, that's just how I normally look, he said as he took off his mask, showing his mouth and chin. I assume it's something to do with my ability, he said. Oh, and what would that be? She was curious about the boy. I have the ability to talk to and control animals. Oh, really? That sounds like just in the cartoons I watch. Can you show me, please? Pretty please, the little girl pleaded. No problem, Koda replied, and then started to scream somewhat, which drew some eyes from the other kids in the schoolyard. Slowly following, a couple of birds and squirrels started to approach Koda and stand by him and landing on his arm, to the shock of all the kids around them. Wow, that's so cool, Zenko said as other students around her started to murmur the same thing, gathering around the Koda, making him get slightly scared from all the eyes on him. A flurry of questions were asked by numerous of the kids that began to surround them, so many that they all started to blend into one voice. Bad, noticing how uncomfortable the teen was around them, decided to end it as he called for both of them to start to leave and head home. Koda breathed a sigh of relief as the three of them began to leave the school grounds. As they were leaving, a number of teen girls tried to stop and talk to Bad, and even some older ladies as well, but he just ignored them and continued on his way. Once they were out on the street, the group started walking towards their home, which was around a 30-minute walk from her school. As they walked, Zenko asked numerous questions about Koda's quirk and what he could do with it, and he answered her questions as honestly as he could. As they walked, Koda was rudely bumped by two guys passing by on the street. Even though it was their fault, he still went to apologize, but the two men weren't keen to accept his apology. Hey, buddy, you better watch where you're stepping, or something bad might happen, he said threateningly. Yeah, maybe you should use that overgrown head of yours to actually look at where you're going, the man's partner said. Koda could only mumble a reply as the two men got in his face. By the smell of their breath, they were both somewhat intoxicated and were obviously taking out their frustrations on him. Suddenly, one of the two men reeled back in pain and kicked one of them in the back of the leg. You are the one that bumped into him. You guys should be the ones apologizing, she said confidently with her arm crossed in front of her. Beat it, little girl. This as he was stopped by his friend, only making a gesture behind the girl, which he followed to look at the teen behind him even in his slightly drunken state. He knew who that teen was, the S-Class hero Metal Bat, and he was staring daggers at the two of them. The two men were frightened by the mere aura the man was giving off as he spoke to them. You heard her. Apologize and be on your way, he said calmly with some aggression in his voice and shouldering his bat to get the point across. Both men apologized and quickly walked away. Bad looked at Koda, who was still nervously rubbing his hands together with his head down, and sighed to himself. You're an introvert or something? Bad asked. Koda merely nodded in reply. Bad mentally sighed to himself and started walking again. That's kinda ironic, given your ability requires you to scream and shout to take effect, he said lightly, snickering to himself, to which Zenko smacked him in the back of the head. Don't make fun of him, he may just be naturally shy and that's okay, she said, turning to look at Koda. Oh, if you say so, but you gotta learn to stick up for yourself. Someone may not always be there to protect you, Bad explained. Koda nodded in reply. Zenko stayed quiet as her brother did raise a good point. Well, I guess that's something you could teach him. Big brother, he needs a confidence boost and you need to be more level-headed and chill. You both can learn something from the other. Bad and Koda both looked at each other for a moment, both weighing what Zenko said. Koda maybe thinks she's right while Bad was a bit more stubborn. I'm pretty chill already, Zenko, he said. Sure you are, and is that why you always come home with bleeding and damage all over your body? She replied. With him not saying anything, she continued. If you were more calm and collected like Koda, you may not get so injured all the time from charging straight into battle. Not to mention spending a significant part of our budget on hospital bills, she said, pinching his cheek. Alright, I'll be more careful next time. I promise. Bad dismissed. You said that every time you end up in the hospital, she screamed, smacking him again in the back of the head. The rest of the walk was pretty safe and small, the group making small conversations about a multitude of subjects as they soon came up to the hero's house. It wasn't too large, smaller than Momo's mansion but larger than most homes he saw back in Japan. As they arrived, they saw a dark car in the driveway. Knowing what that meant, Bad dismissed his sister goodbye. She waved goodbye to Bad and Koda as well for them to be careful out there. The association worker got out of his car and approached the duo. It was the same bearded man from before. Metal Bat, we have another quest for you. An important client of ours has his son who got his son lost in a forest, and we want you to go and find him. Bat almost gagged about the request until he realized who he was with. You hear that, rookie? Time for you to show what you're made of, he said, clasping the boy's shoulders as he moved forward to get in the car with the bearded worker. The drive to the estate was somewhat short, 1 hour at most. The estate was huge, even bigger than Momo's house, and behind it was a deep jungle. On the way they were debriefed that the estate homeowners were often into hunting and would often go hunting with their son in the forest behind their home. But he was taken in a freak ambush by some sort of monster. As they stepped in to meet the grieving parents, which showed them the last position they saw him and what he last wore, Metal Bat gestured for Kota to use his power, begging to yell and ask the birds for help with finding the lost child. Suddenly he was interrupted by growls coming from around them. As he stopped, he looked around to see some wolf-like creatures surrounded them. They had weird appendages extending from their mouths and hardened spike-like covering on their body. He started to yell again to attempt to soothe the creatures, but it only seemingly angered the mutant wolves more as they rushed at Kota, who flinched and dove to the side, dodging the attack. The wolf came back to lung again, but was suddenly caught on the side by Bad's bat, completely shattering its ribcage and sending its corpse flying. And just when I thought this would get boring, he said, aiming his bat at the rest of the wolves. Come on, I'll take you all on. Tell me when you find the boy's position, then make a beeline towards it. Kota nodded in return and began to yell again. Soon the birds answered and spotted the child some kilometers away. The two-man team fought their way through the jungle, mostly Metal Bat, with Kota giving directions, and rescued the child and brought him back to his family safely. The bottom of Bad's pants had splotches of blood on them, and some was still dripping from his bat as well, but other than that he didn't appear to be damaged at all. You can't fight at all or something? Bad said bluntly. No, not really. I don't really like fighting, Kota replied. Well, we're going to have to change that. You can't be with me and expect not to fight. I mean, what else is there to being a hero other than fighting and killing monsters? Well, they're always finding lost people and animals, Kota argued. And if you have to fight to get to them, like we just did, Bad replied. Kota opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. You're gonna have to strengthen up to at least be able to defend yourself. That or you keep some type of attack animal with you. Come to think, didn't you say that your ability could control animals? Why couldn't you control those wolves back there? I don't know, those were clearly something else entirely from regular animals. Anything with a high enough intelligence I can't control. And when I spoke to them, it only seemed to anger them further. Kota replied, confused himself. Well, if you can't control monsters, then your only other option is to bulk up yourself and be able to fight at least a wolf-level threat by yourself, Bad said, Kota nodding and understanding as they prepared to leave again, dropping Bad off back at his home and taking Kota back to association headquarters. Moving forward, Genos, Kusino, Kaklunk, the sound of a robot's carcass falling on the ground of the laboratory aligns with a softer thud of something else. Professor Kusino, the familiar voice of his adoptive son, rang through the halls of his lab as he made his approach to the cyborg. Shock at what he saw. These parts are from a robot named G4. It was incredibly powerful and intelligent. They are damaged, but use anything on me that you can. I want to be stronger. Looking at the robot below, they reminded him of something from the past. Genos, these parts, where did you? Very well, I'll do it. You have room to grow stronger. But more importantly, who are those two boys behind you? Friends of yours, he said hopefully, pointing at the unconscious teens behind the damaged cyborg. The cyborg sneered in response. Hardly. The association dumped them on me. I rendered them unconscious as I do not trust them to know the location of your base. He was mentally saddened by that statement. So, why bring them here, then? They both have some interesting supernatural abilities. This one has the ability to use ice and fire with the two sides of his body. The other one has the ability to make explosions from his hands. You may be able to unlock the secrets of their abilities from their blood and create something to enhance me further, Genos inquired. So this was just another way to gain strength for him, the professor thought as he looked at his damaged state. You shouldn't push yourself so hard. It is necessary. My master tasked me with reaching the top 10 of the S-class, was the cyborg's immediate reply. Such a reckless task. I would like to meet him one day. Have you found any clues on the cyborg that destroyed your home? The slightly shocked and down face told the professor his answer. You've been too focused on your hero duties, I see. Don't worry, whatever happens I will find that cyborg and destroy it with my own hands, the cyborg said seriously with a murderous aura surrounding him. The professor had hoped his anger had dulled with the time and with his master. Maybe training these two could change that, he thought as he addressed him. I warn you, Genos, I have been tracking this cyborg longer than you have. I know how dangerous it can be. If you do find it, do not fight alone. Report to me immediately. I understand, Professor Cusino. This is our fight. The cyborg has taken many lives, and we will not let it live. He said harshly, that same murderous aura emerging again. Only sighing to himself, the doctor looked down and began investigating the robot and the boys. Well, I'll see what upgrades I will be able to gather from this robot, and as for the teens as well, but I make no promises on the latter. That is fine, Professor, anything to become stronger, the cyborg said. The rest of the time was spent on analyzing the pieces of the G4 robot and adopting its components to Genos. The transfer was successful, and Genos' body was completely remade stronger than before. The two teens were kept artificially unconscious by Genos' request. He was currently fighting in the virtual genocide system, testing out his new upgrades. He did indeed grow stronger. According to the system, he was strong enough to easily beat Mosquito Girl and the Deep Sea King, but he still failed against Carnage Kabuto even after 55 attempts. He still didn't even transform into his Carnage mode, making it even worse. Taking off the system, he began to think of further training opponents other than himself, and his eyes fell on the two teens below and wondered, Professor, do you think this machine would work on regular humans? Already seeing where Genos was going, he confirmed. Yes, you still in fact have a human brain, so naturally the machine will be based around concepts it can understand. But be warned, unlike you, they do not have enhanced visuals and sensors. The data it will absorb of people will be straight from how they perceive the threat and their experience of it. It would be far from an accurate representation unless they have extensive knowledge of the person. I see, but my main motivation of doing so is not for training but to have a glimpse into their memories. Understanding where this was coming from, Cusino asked, You don't trust them? Well, more than normally, that is, he asked, eyebrows slightly raised. No, the circumstances surrounding them are too strange. The association had bribed and strong-armed the S-class into accepting these teens as students. Along with that, they have no history. Even a cursory glance at their files reads as fake to the keen eye. Any other details surrounding them are strictly classified. He reasoned. I see that as a cause of concern. Maybe they were grown by splicing monster DNA to gain their abilities. That reminds me, the blood samples I extracted are indeed strange and abnormal. Their powers are indeed embedded in them, but it will take some time for me to properly understand and make something useful out of them. The half-half powers are showing promise, but the explosion powers aren't. That's fine, Sensei. Should I return with blood samples of those that seem worth it? At least ask for their permission if you plan on doing so, Casuno replied drearily. Genos had set the device on the two teens and let the data accumulate and process. As he put the device back on, a slew of new options appeared. The machine had approximated that only one of them were seen to be as strong as Carnage Kabuto, even fewer that were calculated to be of a demon-level threat. Quickly entering the simulation of the weaker opponents, instead of focusing on the fight, he focused on the surroundings, and he recognized none of it. No city on the continent mimicked his surrounding area, making it strange, very strange. He easily killed the Rand bandana-wearing ninja-esque villain that held knives in his hands and continued forward to the next opponent. This continued for some time before he finally came to the demon-level threats. After beating some black monsters, he went to the human-looking foes, first taking on the man that was supposedly as strong as Carnage Kabuto, which confused him initially. Why would he have two different entries, he wondered. As he fought and with some difficulty beat the smiling red, white, and blue figure, he watched as his body seemingly deflated into a skeletal form that signaled the end of the fight. The next fight was of the highest human demon in the category, and the third highest of the new additions. He appeared above a skyscraper, flying as suddenly a flame exploded out of the building in front of him, pushing him back slightly. A buff red-haired man with flames covering his body began flying, and Genos ready himself for the battle to come. Deliberations, Class 1A. As the class first day in this new world was slowly coming to a close, Ilda had called for the class to the common room to discuss the day's events. Everyone slowly entered the room, and he mentally held a small sigh of relief knowing that all of them were doing okay. That was until Uraraka came in, who practically collapsed into her chair. She was carrying a single cube that was roughly 3 times the size of her hand. Once she collapsed onto the chair, she let the cube gently settle down into the floor in front of her before releasing the effect of her quirk. Ida and Midoriya were upon her immediately. Uraraka, are you okay? Midoriya said, slightly worried. What happened? Ida inquired seriously. Training with her, Uraraka said through pants of breath. Before she could elaborate further, she suddenly held her mouth, quickly thinking Midoriya scanned the room looking for something to catch her puke in. Spotting a small trash can, he used his black whip to pull it towards him and offer it to Uraraka, who wanted to offer her thanks, but as she opened her mouth she began throwing up instead, thankfully straight into the trash bin. This drew the attention of others in the room, who stopped their conversation and all began to pile around Uraraka to see if she was okay. Given who you were put under, I was afraid that something like this would happen, Hilda said stoically. Seeing the eyes on him, he continued. The hero that picked Uraraka up today is Tatsumaki, or better known as Tornado of Terror. She's the number 2 hero of this world and has been described as having a short temper and very much prone to violence, he explained to the class. So she's kind of like a female Bakugou, Zero said, garnering a few chuckles from the class, before being abruptly interrupted. You wanna run that by me again, you filthy extra, Bakugou explained, walking into the room with Todoroki behind him, holding up his hands in mock surrender. Zero slightly sweating. I didn't say anything at all. That's what I thought, loser, he replied, walking towards one of the corners of the room, as Todoroki went towards the rest of the group. What happened to Uraraka? He asked, seeing her still throwing up into the trash bin, noticing the cube-shaped rock down by her feet. What is that? He pointed towards the rock, drawing everyone's attention to it. T-train material, Uraraka manages to squeak out between gags. It doesn't look so heavy, Kaminari mentioned as he tried to pick the rock up but had no luck whatsoever, not even budging the thing. Tapping the yellow-haired boy on the shoulder and smirking, Kirishima approached behind. Don't let your mouth write a check that you can't cash, he said as he also tried to move the rock but was met with the same luck. You can't move it either, Kaminari said as well, which then became a contest between the guys on who can lift or even move the object between Kaminari, Kirishima, and Sato, none of which were able to. Uraraka finally was able to catch her breath and speak clearly. It's 80 tons, she said factually, making the entire room gasp in shock and surprise. What? Really? Nina screamed out from beside her. Uraraka only nodded in response. She said that because of how weak I am that my training doesn't end when she's not around. Using her power, she compressed a giant rock she lifted down to this size and told me anytime I want to move that I have to carry this rock with me everywhere I go. She explained the situation. That's highly irresponsible. What if you were to accidentally hit yourself with it or fall unconscious due to the strain? There has to be safer methods of doing that. I may need to speak with about this, Ida said seriously. Upon hearing that, she immediately shook her head. I wouldn't recommend that, Ida, and I don't mind it, really. She said that this would make me stronger and I really want to be, she said with conviction. Deku nodded in reply and looked at the rock and used 5% full cowling and moved the cube some and then slowly raised it to 15%, where he was fully able to pick the cube up and seemingly test its weight. Somewhat disheartening, the 3 who tried to pick it up prior. I would say you're making us look bad. But if that thing really does weigh 80 tons then I don't feel bad at all, Kaminari said. Yeah, that's insanely manly, Midoriya. What percent are you at to lift it up so casually? Kirishima asked. Placing the cube back down near Uraraka, he turned to face Kirishima. 15%. Wow, I can't believe it. You're incredibly strong. I'll try and catch up if I can. My teacher Darkshine hinted that he could lift more than 10,000 tons, and I hope I can at least lift up to that cube when I'm done with his training. This got the whole crowd even more surprised. 10 Kelvin tons. Aren't the people of this earth supposed to be quirkless? How can they be so strong? Takoyami asked. Different universe, different rules, Shoji mentioned casually. After that, the group began discussing the day's events, and what they did, most of it were pretty dry with nothing much to share besides getting to know their heroes better. Mina had some images that she showed off to the class of the awesome things she saw in the Child Emperor's lab and her holding a device similar to a lightsaber, making the guys around gush besides Todoroki and Bakugou, who was constantly silent. Aoyama, Tsu, Mainta, what hero did you get? I don't think they were in the gym with the others, Momo asked. I got Watchdog Man. He is a man in a dog costume. Despite how he looks, he's incredibly strong and fast. He was able to travel 30 kilometers in a second and he's the sole protector of an entire city, Tsu mentioned. Well, for me I was chosen by none other than King. He is the strongest of the S-class. He even destroyed a giant raven that was like 1,000 times larger than a regular one, Minda said proudly, puffing up his chest. Well, I was chosen by the idol superstar himself, Handsome Sweet Mask, perfectly benefiting someone like me who is destined for stardom, Aoyama exclaimed, flashing a smile and striking a pose that swept his cape to and fro. The name instantly drawing Takoyami gaze towards Toru, who he assumed looked back. How was your time with him? He asked Aoyama with a worried tone. Your tone suggests that he may have something to worry about. What's wrong? Momo asked. When we were having lunch with our hero, he told us what had happened to a city. Aliens attacked and wiped it out completely, and from the ashes they created this place. They couldn't question the aliens' motivations because he killed them before they could get the opportunity. Toru explained. Zombie Man said that he may have a dark side that he hides from the world, so I'm simply inquiring if that's correct or not. Takoyami reasoned. Quickly shaking his head, Aoyama replied. No, nothing like that. He's just a bit rougher than you would expect of him, but he means well and always strives for perfection. Aoyama explained. Well, with that said, I'm sure you all may have seen it firsthand or not, but this world and its heroes have a different rule set when it comes to killing. It seems to be their go-to option when dealing with enemies, but I hope that while we are here that we can change their mind on that if possible and never resort to it ourselves if possible. Which brings me to the reason I called you all here today. I didn't just want to talk about today's events and check up on you, but I also would like to ask you all your opinion on an offer I was given to me by my hero Flashy Flash. After a brief test, he offered me a deal to travel with him on a quest, but warned that it will be dangerous and potentially life-threatening for me. I will be gone the entire month on this quest. Should I accept as well? I am undecided on the offer, so I open the floor to you all as well. Do you think that I should go? Ida said. Well, at least you're getting a choice. I'll be away for the month as well. I don't know all the details, but I know we are traveling by sea, so if anything it's going to be like a fancy cruise, full of people who hate me. So I say go for it. Zero said, somewhat dishearteningly. From everything I've seen and heard about the S-Class today, I don't think you should be worried about the danger. They all seem super strong, and going on a super secret ninja mission seems cool to me. Kaminari said. Ike, having the class split up already was a risky move in such a strange place. You said so yourself. Now you're pondering on leaving for an entire month with someone you barely know. I think it's too risky to do. Sato explained. If it's any consolation, the demon cyborg protected me and Bakugou twice when we were fighting that giant robot in M City. He even brought us back here. While they may not be our friends, they're not going to just leave you to die either, Todoroki said. Garnering surprise from the group, seeing as how they already had been in a fight here. What happened? Momo asked, concerned. We don't know much really. The demon cyborg and his master operated under unusual rules of engagement, so me and Bakugou attempted to be more proactive but failed in falling the creature. Our imminent danger forced them into action. After the battle was over with one of the creatures, however, more came and knocked me and Bakugou unconscious. At least that's what the note said once we woke up. Todoroki explained. Well, I'm glad that he was there to protect you. Momo breathed a sigh of relief and turned back to the topic at hand. With this information, I would be a bit less hesitant on going. The S-Class heroes are strong, and I'm sure on your travels you can learn or be taught many useful things that may help you later. But the choice is yours to make. The conversation continued on, with a majority being swayed by Todoroki and Bakugou tale of being protected. Ida ultimately made his decision. Okay, after constant talks I have decided to accompany him on the journey in my absence. As formality implies, Momo would take on my duties as acting president of the classroom and Midoriya will be acting vice president. Treat them with as much respect as you treat me and listen to their instruction when given. He scolded the class. I'll try to keep in touch as much as possible about my whereabouts and happenings. How are you going to prepare in such a short amount of time? Ajiro asked. No need to worry about that. I have already packed a bag of things I may need just in case of this possibility. I'll be fully prepared to leave tomorrow morning, Hilda assured. That's our class president for you, Nina joked, getting some small chuckles in from some of the girls in the class. After some more light-hearted talking, everyone began to file out of the common room towards their respective rooms. Midoriya offered to help carry the cube back to her room, but she refused and powered on, using her quirk on the object and continuing forward towards her room with Midoriya following behind. Uraraka had almost fell, but he caught her. After a slight silence and both teens blushing madly, Midoriya helped her stand back up and led her back to her door. She thanked Midoriya for his help as she closed her door, and he left to his room, as almost everyone in the class had a peaceful sleep, excited for what the next few days have to offer. Virtual genocide training, Genos', Darkshine's, Zombiman's groups and Snek. As the class woke up for their day and followed the usual routine of meeting in the common area and eating, an association agent had arrived to advise Bakugou, Todoroki, Kirishima, Takoyami, Koda and Toru that their teachers would be here in headquarters today in observation room 45. Sato decided to tag along with Kirishima per Pig God's orders, and the small group slowly were led towards the area designated. They quickly ran into the demon cyborg, who was just entering into the doorway of the observation room. He took a moment to look at the group, cross-referencing their names from his memory and looking into the Hero Association database to look at their hero rankings. The association member quickly left the group after a quick greeting, and Genos entered the observation area with the group of teens, to immediately be called out by Snek. "So it was you that summoned us here. I remember you. You were with that bald guy during the initiation. What do you want with Snakebite Snek?" "I came here because I heard some reckless guy was challenging me to a one-on-one fight," Metal Bat exclaimed. "I think you heard wrong. There was mention of a new training machine that they wanted to try out." Darkshine confirmed. "Why the hell are we here, Mr. Roboto? Scared to get scrapped again?" Bakugou sneered sidely, as he and the rest of his classmates found somewhere to sit in the room. What a bunch of unpleasant members, thought Zombie Man as he viewed each person in the room before he turned towards Genos himself. "You're the new addition to the S-Class Demon Cyborg, right? What do you want with us?" he questioned. A class heroes, Snek, Tsukayomi, and King Dynamite Explosion, and S-Class heroes, Frozen Phoenix, Metal Bat, Super Alloy Darkshine, and Zombiman. "You will all don this device and fight enemies in virtual space," he said, holding up a virtual headset device. "Eh? The hell is that? The latest toy or something?" Metal Bat asked. "Can't we get a turn as well?" Kirishima questioned, raising his hand. Genos turned to him and looked at him curiously. "No, anyone below the rank of a class I believe won't be of much use in gathering combat data. All the monsters in there are demon class or above," Genos said purely, but something he said piqued Zombie Man's interest. "What do you plan on doing with the combat data?" he asked. "I will use it as a reference for myself to get stronger," Genos said casually. A little taken back by the answer, Zombiman just smirked and replied, "I see. You're a surprisingly straightforward guy. Very well, I'll go along with you. Well, I hope it will be a helpful reference." "And why would I help you with that?" Bakugou said with his arms crossed, only receiving a short glare from Genos before quickly turning away before replying. "Maybe from this you can understand your actual limitations before getting yourself killed as a result. Need I not remind you of the other day?" Genos mentioned seriously, which only got Bakugou to suck his teeth and sit back in seat. Kirishima trying to calm him that said everyone else agreed to his terms and what he would do with the data, so he began again. "Snakebite Snek, you're up first." Snek grabbed the device and put it on before the simulation started. He said, "HMPH, I'm going to show you guys right here that I'm actually pretty damn strong." Just as the simulation started, all the viewers could see was a big brown humanoid type beetle, and then darkness as the simulation suddenly came to a close. To a stunned Snek. "I was defeated in 3 seconds, he said astonished. "No, correctly speaking, it was 2.52 seconds, Genos stated factually, getting a laugh out of some of the teens there, the loudest being Bakugou. Feeling somewhat embarrassed, he tried to save face by questioning the authenticity of the machine. "There must be something wrong with the strength setting," he said, which Genos ignored his ramblings and continued on. "Tsukayomi, you're up next," Genos said, giving the machine to Takoyami. "What? If I lost that fast, of course a kid won't serve any better," Snek commented, leaning on a wall away from everyone else. "Especially someone in some cheap costume," he muttered. Takoyami took the machine and began to put it on. Suddenly his vision was full of light. He saw the giant brown beetle creature in front of him in a giant tiled room with white. He deployed dark shadow from his body ready for battle, which drew some looks from the audience. "What the heck is that?" Metal said quizzically as he looked at the screen. Looking at Zombiman to see if he knew about this, he merely shrugged his shoulders. "Don't look at me. I don't know anything about these kids or their powers." "That's Dark Shadow. It's a being that lives inside Takoyami and gets stronger when in the dark. He is one of the top 4 in our class," Toru said, waving her arms around. Drawing even more gasps from the heroes in the room, Snek responded first. "What? That's a person? There, I thought it was just an Esper playing a prank on someone," he said, bewildered by the invisible girl, looking at her suspiciously. "How rude. Everyone in our class has different powers and abilities that make us each unique in our own way," she said. "Interesting," Metal Bat exclaimed, eager to see what this power of his can do. When the simulation began, it was also over in an instant, to the shock of the teens present, and only getting a snicker from Snek. "Huh, not so easy, is it?" he commented, shaking his head. Takoyami took the headset off and looked disappointed in himself. Genos questioned if he should truly use a class heroes for this test, but having heard the girl's information on him, he wanted the teen to try again. "You lasted 3 seconds, however, from hearing your classmate's description, I would like you to try again. This time the room shall be darker so you can release your full potential," Genos stated. Takoyami nodded his head and put the headset back on, and true to the cyborg words, the room was noticeably dark, only with red outlines highlighting the area. Seeing how strong the beast was, Takoyami let Dark Shadow have full control and fully released itself. Metal Bat whistled. You weren't wrong about being stronger in the dark. It's much bigger than before. The simulation began, and again it ended almost immediately. Takoyami ripped the machine from his head, heavily breathing. Despite its size increase, the results barely changed. Darkshine said, not entirely. He managed to survive for 2 more seconds than previously. Genos stated confidently. Bakugou, you're next, he said, staring at the blonde-headed teen. Seeing his friend beaten so easily even in the dark and without a light source to bat did get his blood pumping. He walked towards them, taking the machine from Takoyami as he went to sit down, and was slowly consoled by his classmates around him. He put the machine on his head and he was greeted with the brown abomination. Seeing the fight before, he knew what the creature's first move would be, so he anticipated it. And dog it out of the way, he launched several explosions at the creature, which didn't make a scratch on its shell. He tried again to attack again, but he felt weightless, the feeling being familiar to him somehow. Then he saw his head was not attached to its body anymore, and he watched his body slump to the ground lifeless as the simulation darkened and concluded. You survived a total of 5 seconds as well, Genos said, but before he could call the next person up, the simulation started again. Bakugou had gone at it again and again, each time doing slightly better than last, but only making milliseconds of difference by the time Genos ripped the machine from him. He attempted another 4 times. You're done. You improved your time by 1 second from the start. Go take your seat, Genos said. TCH, that extra probably right. There is no way something that strong exists, he said incredulously. Who are you calling extra? I'll have you know that I am your senior and a class rank 37 of the association. You should know your place, Snek said snidely, only to be crushed by Demon Cyborg's statement. The association ranks him as a class rank 20. He's above you, Tsukayomi, as well. He's ranked 31. What? There's no way a couple of teens are stronger than me, he said disbelievingly. Choosing to ignore him, he moved on. Frozen Phoenix, your turn is next, he said, gesturing to the device. Todoroki began making his way to the device, passing Bakugou, who was looking defeated, but also shot him a glare as they passed. He took the device from Genos and put it on. Unlike Takoyami, who was consoled when he returned to his seat, Bakugou was left mostly alone. If anything, the classmates all slid away from the teen, knowing his mood, except for Kirishima, who stayed by his side and attempted to cheer him up, only to get yelled at spectacularly. Todoroki put the device on, seeing the huge creature standing before him, taunting him. Seeing how strong the beast was, he wasted no time when the simulation began to unleash a massive torrent of flames at the creature. But to his shock, the creature simply inhaled and blew the attack back at him. Thinking fast, he created an ice wall to shield himself from his own attack and quickly began to move as the creature immediately crashed through the ice to reach him. Using his ice and flames to accelerate him away from the beast, he stopped and unleashed a giant stream of ice. It connected, but the creature simply marched through it like daisies. He tried to move again, but the creature was already ahead of him, jumping up towards the ceiling to come crashing down, which he narrowly avoided by moving away and using his ice to alter the creature's path. But even with that, the creature managed to graze his arm, and by the looks of it, just from the graze, it was completely unusable. He used his leg to summon more ice to buy him time as he charged up heat in his left hand, hopping to use a flash fire fist, but he never got the chance to. The creature burrowed through the ice and headbutt him in the chest, sending him flying away towards the far wall, cratering upon impact and knocking the wind out of him falling to the ground. He found it hard to breathe or even move. He watched as the creature approached and was still attempting to fight. Used all the flames at his disposal and launched it at the creature, but it did nothing to slow its approach. It walked through the flames like a breeze in the wind and crushed his head. The simulation went dark and he released a breath that he didn't realize he was holding. 1 minute and 30 seconds. For reference, I had a time of 1 minute and 50 seconds. You indeed hold power, but you need to work on everything else, Genos commented, while taking the machine from Todoroki. Bakugou was balling his fist the entire time, glaring daggers at the screen, ignoring the idiot next to him, his thoughts just replaying that being's words. Fire and ice powers, huh? Guess the hair's an indicator for that, Zombiman commented. Metal Bat, you're up next, Genos called out. About time. I was begging to fall asleep over here, Metal Bat called out, heading up confidently. He took the machine from Genos and placed it on his head. The Metal Bat sized up the beast, raised up his bat and charged forward straight at the beast, and they exchanged a series of blows. A frontal exchange of blows, huh? Zombiman commented. What a great number of attacks, Darkshine said. So manly. You got a kick-ass teacher, Kota Kirishima exclaimed, raising a fist into the air. Why yeah, he really is amazing. Koda answered softly. After a couple of more seconds soon he failed to beat the beast. Metalbat took off the headset confused. What over already? You lost, Metalbat, because the damage you sustained was too grave for you to continue. You lasted 3 minutes on your first try. That's impressive in your own right. Genos said. Huh? What are you talking about? I can totally keep going. Metalbat inquired. No, when you are injured to that extent it's over, you're considered dead in the game world. Maybe in the game, but in real life it wouldn't go down like that. Death is just a flesh wound. With fighting spirit I would just get back up again for another round. Calm down, Metalbat. It would make a huge mess if you got into a real fight with Genos here. TCH, whatever. Just know if that were real I would have totally beat that thing. He said to the rest of the people in the group as he went to sit back down. I guess that means I'm up next, Zombiman said as he stood up and approached the device. Zombiman, I heard you're an undying hero. Geos asked. If the device can read their abilities it will have no trouble reading mine, he told Genos as he put the device on. As the simulation began, Zombie Man's body was instantly removed from his head by the brown beetle creature, while pulverizing what remained of his body into the ground. Hey, isn't the machine supposed to stop when the person takes too much damage? Metalbat replied. Oh god, I don't think I have the stomach to watch this, Toru said as she turned away from the screen. His body is gradually disappearing. Is it okay to keep it going? It's starting to look gory as hell, Darkshine said. This is strange. The battle should have long since been concluded, but the system isn't stopping it. What's going on? Genos said, confused. It must be because my brain isn't acknowledging this as real danger on a cognitive level. Stuff like this isn't even considered damage. Zombiman said simply. Bullshit. A body-less head is in no position to say that. Metal said angrily. 30 minutes later. Looks like it's going to go on for a while. Yawns. I'm gonna take a nap. Call me when it's over, Metalbat said, turning over and relaxing in his chair. I'm also going to take a break and get ready for my battle, Darkshine said. Then aside from Zombiman, it's recess for everyone else. Everyone, go take a break, Genos said to everyone who slowly began to filter out of the room sometime later. So how was the experience? Sato asked Takoyami. Yeah, that monster seemed hella strong. Kirishima followed up. Indeed, I never felt a presence like it other than Gigantomachia. It was incredibly fast and strong. Even Dark Shadow's true potential didn't make a difference. At that Dark Shadow emerged from Takoyami to speak. It definitely felt like I was in the presence of that monster again. I saw him, you know. Before he began rampaging he was just down in the fertile position in the Liberation's hideout. He was the monster I was referring to when you unleashed me. Dang, I can't wait to see Darkshine fight it then. He hit me so hard that it felt like I was hit by Makita again, Kirishima said, punching his fist together. Really? Takoyami asked, only receiving a nod in reply. What about you, Todoroki? How would you rate the experience? They asked the quiet boy. Huh? Oh, it was an experience. It was surely something like Makita, no doubt about that. It was incredibly strong and resilient to both my flames and ice, he said stoically, looking at his hands. Yeah, seeing that creature just blow your flames away with his mouth was astonishing. But according to the demon cyborg you almost did as good as him. That must be at least some constellation, Sato said. They said that you were an S-class and that just confirms it. I'm curious to see how Midoriya would do. He is really strong as well. Speaking of strong, where is Bakugou? Kirishima said. As if his questioning materialized them both, Koda and Toru came rushing towards the group. Guys, come quick, it's Bakugou, he's about to fight, Toru exclaimed, surprising everyone at the table. All of them quickly following her back to the observatory room, where the wall that was there turned into a transparent film showing both Bakugou and Snek down below, stretching and getting into a fighting position. What happened? Kirishima asked Genos, who was watching through the window with them. He simply stated, it seems an altercation had happened in the hallway. It escalated into this. You're not going to stop them? Sato asked. King Dynamite Explosion showed increasing levels of aggression as he realized how weak he was, especially after the Frozen Phoenix's attempt in the simulator. He's probably using this as a stress relief. Snek, on the other hand, has an inferiority complex. He wants to prove his superiority to someone he considers below him. I doubt any of you can stop them with mere words. It's better to just let them get this out of their system. I'm curious how they fight against someone of their level anyways, Genos stated factually. And what if they really hurt each other? Toru asked. I doubt it will come to that. It is about to begin, he said as everyone turned their attention back to the two below. Snek had gotten into a stance, as did Bakugou. He immediately launched forward using his propulsion to launch himself at his fellow hero. He slammed his palm in front of the hero using his quirk to blow up the ground beneath him, sending the hero into the air. Snek quickly stabilized and ready himself as Bakugou launched after him, his hands already glowing with the explosion ready in his hands. Thinking quickly, Snek deflected the blow with the palm of his hand, rotating it and throwing the explosion off center. He then followed with a punch to the face with his other hand, sending the explosive teen back down. The explosive teen corrected his fall with an explosion to the ground and looked up as he held his hand up, launching multiple AP shots in the air. Using his body's momentum, Snek tried to avoid the blast but only managed to dodge one or two before being overwhelmed by the others. Redevising his strategy, he decided to instead try and protect his most important areas and power through the teen's attacks. When he finally reached within striking distance of teen from his fall, he tried to strike out with a quick pal strike, but the boy moved his head out of the way and counter with an explosion to the man's exposed abdomen. Snek's other hand quickly caught the wrist of the attacking hand before it could reach its intended target, and the explosion launched towards the ground harmlessly. The hand that missed retracted and grabbed the boy's head and led him straight into a knee strike that staggered the boy backwards a bit. Snek got back into position as the kid recovered from the blow and launched back at him. He believed that the boy was going for another straightforward attack and lashed out as he got into range, but to his surprise the boy used his explosions to launch upwards and around behind him, landing a solid explosion on the hero's exposed back, forcing him forward. He used his explosion to maneuver back around to the hero's front and landed another explosion to his exposed stomach, but the hero used his close proximity to wrap his arms around the extended hand and delivered multiple snake-style attacks. The boy's abdomen and neck. Bakugou attempted to use his other hand to attack, but Snek tripped the boy up, causing the explosion to go wide into the air. He struck the boy another couple of times before Bakugou used his explosion to launch both of them towards the wall, crashing Snek into the wall, releasing his grip on the boy's arm. He then used a close-range AP shot that was larger than the one before, and a cloud of smoke surrounded the area. Soon after, the person that walked out of the smoke was Bakugou, heading for the door, leaving an unconscious Snek on the ground, his suit having some tears in it. Bakugou was slightly limping but continued on towards the door. With that done, the group waited for Bakugou to come back up to the room, and as he made his entrance and noticed the people staring at him, he simply asked, "What are you guys looking at?" and turned to walk back to his seat and watch Zombiman match against the Beast. The match was just drawing to a close, taking 3 hours to finish up, and to everyone's surprise, Zombiman won. "Zombiman's back," Darkshine said, which stirred Metal Bat from his slumber. Finally admitting defeat, he said cockily, "I won," was Zombie Man's simple reply. "What?" Genos said, surprised. He went into carnage mode, and after that was done he was too tired to move, and I finished him off. According to the date on the machine, an entire week has passed since you started fighting. Tokoyami questioned. The machine must have sensed the stalemate and increased the speed of time to find a conclusion. While it's impressive, it can't be used as a reference at all, Genos said dryly. "Guess that means I'm finally up. Since we're in virtual space, it would be okay for me to release the full power of my muscles, right?" Darkshine said, pumped up, heading towards the machine. "Yes, go ahead. Show me your full power." With that confirmation, Darkshine put on the device and activated the simulation, tempted to go all out. Both combatants stared each other down. To the teen's surprise, the monster began to transform, getting larger and bigger. Its brown skin turned blue with green highlights. It doubled its muscle mass and size and looked incredibly dangerous. The two combatants launched at each other despite his 3x smaller size. Darkshine was holding up pretty well. Similar to Metal Bat, he went for a straightforward approach, attacking head-on and trading blows with the creature. Unlike Metal Bat, however, the creature was the one getting beaten back, and Darkshine hadn't taken that much damage at all. "Whoa, I knew you were tough, Darkshine, but this is insane," so manly Kirishima said. "He's really pushing that thing back. I can't believe it," Tokoyami said, astonished, Dark Shadow coming out to see with his own eyes. "This is a great fight," Zombiman commented. The fight came to a head when Darkshine rushed towards the creature in a tackle, crashing it into the wall, leaving a large indent. Finishing the creature off, he jumped into the air and dropped down on the center of the creature, crushing its internal organs and winning the battle. He took the headset off to a round of applause from the teens minus the blonde hair individual, and he got up and bowed before speaking. "He's a lot stronger than I imagined. It took me 15 minutes. Zombiman is undying, so his body makes sense. But what's with your body, Darkshine? Has it been modified?" Genos inquired, suspicious of Darkshine's strength. "Yeah, there's no way someone that is quirkless could be that strong," Toru yelled, waving her arms to and fro excitedly. "I'm not a cyborg. Although, I can't say my body hasn't been modified by the power of muscles, Darkshine said proudly while flexing his muscles. So manly, Kirishima said, slightly shaking Sato somewhat with his hands. Muscles, you say? Looks like I have to give up on upgrading my parts. Maybe I should discuss with Dr. Cusino about installing muscle upgrades. Genos seriously considered. By the way, Genos, I saw there are monsters in this to choose from. Can I give them a go? Yes, but there is only one other being on there that is as strong as a Carnage, Kabuto, Genos said. That's fine, set it up. Darkshine said excitedly to fight another strong opponent. Who is it? Zombiman inquired. For that, I do not know. He turned to look at the teens and continued, but they should be able to tell us when he appears, which drew a bunch of confused glances from the teens. As the simulation started, they were floored by what they saw on screen. The hero's signature smile and red, white, and blue costume combined with his size and glowing blonde hair left no doubt in any of their minds. Almost unanimously, all the teens in the room said his name. Allmight, they asked confusingly, all staring back at Genos, curious how he would possibly have data on said individual. Most of their faces were of shock, but two were of skepticism, and another of rage. How the hell did you get that data, you scrap heap? Bakugou said, voice dripping with venom. I simply took the opportunity to learn more about you all. If I'm going to be forced to suffer your presence for some time, then I would have liked to know where you came from. Where you actually came from, he clarified. That's some serious invasion of privacy. You know, you could have just asked them. Zombiman said casually. And do you suspect me to just take their word for it? How would I know if what they're telling me is the truth or not? He shot back immediately. What reason would they have to lie to you? Zombiman inquired. What reason would they have to tell the truth? You saw how suspiciously the association acted when they forced them on us. There's something they aren't telling us, and I am not going to take a risk to test out the association's experiments. Genos replied sharply. Zombiman only sighed in response, straightforward and overly cautious, he thought. They're aliens, plain and simple. Before you ask, they were not a part of the group that destroyed a city. How they got here is what's classified. Zombiman said. I've gathered as such. Cross-reference from the buildings and sites I've seen from all the cities on the continent found no match. I was there when the aliens were executed. They didn't have any human-type individuals, so I never suspected such a connection. And I didn't have to butcher the laws of consent and privacy to get that information. Zombiman said. Were there even other robots that attacked us? Todoroki inquired. No, was the cyborg's only reply. So it was you that attacked us. ... Yes. Another short answer with no hint of regret or at least embarrassment. The room got eerily quiet and the atmosphere lowered greatly. Bakugou was fuming mad and some of the classmates could feel the air cool around Todoroki. Tell us everything you took from our memories, you bastard. Bakugou said, his hands beginning to show sparks glowing from his hands. If you're worried about any secrets being leaked, fear not. Even the great Professor Cusino doesn't have that technology to look into memories completely. I only went through important fights in your life and took data from them. I deleted anything the machine didn't deem a demon-level threat or higher. Mostly the only data provided from your world are this man, a bunch of dark-skinned monsters, as well as, if my guess is correct, your father, Frozen Phoenix. The air around Todoroki turned even colder, his anger barely contained. Bakugou, on the other hand, simply marched up to the demon cyborg, glaring at him the entire time, but as he reached him the sparks in his palms fell away, and he marched out of the door, letting it close behind him. That was really unmanly of you, man, Kirishima said as he went to follow Bakugou out of the room and calm him down before doing anything foolish. Sato was busy texting to see if Ida was okay. Him protecting Todoroki and Bakugou was a serious consideration in their discussion to let him leave with his hero, but this new revelation could turn that on his head. He worried about his friend's safety. Sensing the tense atmosphere, Darkshine wisely did not continue with his fight with All Might but went towards a new fighter instead. He pushed a button on the machine and the simulator changed into a purple hallway. The being had a cape with eccentric armor with spiky shoulder pauldrons and purple spiky hair. He walked down a few steps and approached Darkshine. Who the hell is that? Metal Bat asked, looking to Genos, who shook his head. Any ideas, Frozen Phoenix? Metal Bat asked him. He looked at the screen and shook his head. Well, it won't be stronger than Kabuto, so let's just test him out, Darkshine said, launching an attack at the individual who barely budged from the blow, shocking everyone in the room. The being attacked back and launched Darkshine into a metal column. Getting back up, he stood up ready to fight again, but a little worse for wear than his entire match with Kabuto. The fight lasted a couple of more minutes, with Darkshine quickly losing ground only for the armor to finally fall off, and a burst of power to flash on screen, and suddenly it went dark, signaling that Darkshine had lost. Let me try, I wanna fight that thing. Metal Bat exclaimed. Wait, I dunno, something's wrong, this thing seems broken. Darkshine said, confused. Whatever it was, it must have short-circuited the machine and caused it to malfunction. I guess that means we're done for the day. Genos said as he held the machine in his hand, still questioning where the mysterious being came from. If it wasn't from Dynamite or Phoenix, that only left one option. Well, that was something. Where did you meet a monster like Kabuto anyways? Metal Bat asked. Me and my master had fought him after we were attacked by the House of Evolution. My master defeated Kabuto. The air suddenly froze and surprising even Genos' sensor Zombiman suddenly filled his vision. All sense of casualty gone from his face, only leaving a serious scowl. Explain further, he said angrily. Master had piqued the interest of and to rid ourselves of being attacked at home again, we attacked his headquarters instead. He said stoically. Did you kill him? Zombiman questioned. No, there was a supermarket sale and we had to hurry away. If Zombiman wasn't so in the moment, he would have punched Demon Cyborg in the face for such an excuse. But more pressing matters pertain to him at the moment. I assume you still have the coordinates to his base. Give it to me, Zombiman demanded. Why such a massive interest? Geos questioned. Let's just say I have a personal interest in that organization, he said, reaching into his coat pocket and pulling out his Desert Eagle and pointing it at Genos, creating an incredibly tense situation for everyone in the room. Although Genos showed no signs of concern, only displaying a holographic map of the area from his eyes, making Zombiman put his weapon away to inspect it. There is a cellar door located at this location that will bring you down into the facility me and my master infiltrated. Memorizing it and making a quick nod to Genos, he took off towards the doorway, but before leaving addressed the two students that were beginning to follow him. You two stay here. As I said, this is personal business, and if something like Kabuto is still around, I don't want you guys in the way, he said to Takoyami and Toru as he left the door closing behind him. Toru let out a sigh of relief. Honestly, he's right. I really didn't want to follow him to that spooky place. Seeing it in a game is one thing, but seeing something like that in real life, I wouldn't be able to stand it. Takoyami only nodded in return as he looked as the door closed, curious about what drove the hero so far to even threaten a fellow hero about this organization. Well, with that out of the way, I will be leaving now. I need to check up on a hunch I found, Genos said as he casually left with the device in hand. Todoroki not following behind him, as he is still in his own world, leaving only the teens and Darkshine in the room. Well, I need to go report to my teacher. It's about that time now anyways, Sato mentioned as he left. I'm heading towards the weightlifting area if anyone is interested in joining me, Darkshine inquired. To his and other people's shock, Toru lifted her hand to accompany him. You to Animal Planet. I told you are going to need to bulk up if you hope to be a hero, and I mean it, Metal Bat said to Kota as he looked down and only nodded his head. Well, in that case, I might as well join you all. I may not be a physical fighter like the rest of you, but I can still seek to improve myself, Takoyami said. Excellent. What about you, Frozen Phoenix? Darkshine said, happy to have some new training partners. But the teen didn't respond, only shaking his head, walking out the door while shifting through his thoughts. Everyone else left the kid alone, knowing that he needed his space, and headed over to one of the association's nearest gyms. Kirishima finally managed to catch up to where Bakugou had headed. Surprisingly, the angry teen made significant distance in the little time he left. That or Kirishima was just lost going around the similar-looking interior. Mostly everything was the blackish-gray metal that coated the exterior with little deviation for personality or fashion, instead only relying on purpose and function to distinguish things from each other. What gave Kirishima the tip, however, were the sounds of explosions ripping through the halls of one of the training areas, simply following the noise until it became louder and louder before finally reaching the room Bakugou was in. The room was a barren with rocks with varying degrees of altitudes, similar to the mountain zone in the USJ. Bakugou was currently near the bottom of a plateau, launching multiple explosions at its base, carving a hole around 5 times his size with each blow. As Kirishima approached him, the frequency of his explosions began to die down until it came to a complete stop. With his palms still on the wall, he spoke. What do you want, shitty hair? How did you know it would be me? Kirishima replied, somewhat surprised. Easy, you're the only idiot that would follow me, so again, what do you want? He said a bit more aggressively. Well, I was coming to see if you were okay and that you didn't do anything dumb in your anger. Kirishima mumbled that last part, but not low enough to not be heard as Bakugou turned to face him. I'm not one of you extras, I know how to manage myself just fine. Clearly, Kirishima said skeptically as he began looking around the room, seeing the blast craters around the area. What was that? Bakugou yelled, taking a step towards him, making Kirishima put his hands up in mock surrender. Nothing. I can understand how you feel. I wouldn't want someone messing around in my head without my permission either. He put his hands down. I don't care about what that walking toaster did. Bakugou replied. Really? Then what's up with you? Kirishima asked, perplexed. What makes you think something's up? Bakugou inquired, only receiving a disbelieving look from Kirishima. Sighing, he continued. That simulation of All Might, it was when I was young, when he was still the symbol of peace before I ruined everything. Bakugou said solemnly, earning a shocked expression from Kirishima. None of what is happening is your. If only I wasn't captured that day. All Might would have had more time left. Things could have been different than how they are now. If only I wasn't so weak. Bakugou interrupted. Things could also have been worse. All for One would have been left to roam free and weak. Dude, seriously, you're damn strong. Sure, you're not the strongest, but you don't have to be. As long as everyone chips in, everything will be fine. Besides, we all saw your fight with that other guy. I'm sure you showed him how tough you are. Bakugou chuckled slightly at that. But he did give some praise to that snack guy. He was stronger than Bakugou thought he'd be, that's for sure. People of this would, even without a quirk, have the capability to be strong, really strong, and this only told him that he was training hard enough. He launched himself at Kirishima, an explosion raring to go in his hands. The explosion landed, and like expected, Kirishima stood there hardened. What the hell, bro? What did I say? He said, his body braced for another attack. You said I'm not the strongest, and that just means I gotta train harder. And you're a lot more durable than these rocks. I'm curious how much you've improved since I whooped you in the sports festival. Let's have another match right here, right now, he said, getting into a stance ready for battle with a grin on his face. You're on, Kirishima replied enthusiastically, getting into his stance as well as both combatants then charged at each other. Reformation and redistribution, Drive Knight, Yaoyorozu, Kaminari. Kaminari and Yaoyorozu were both again guided back down into Drive Knight's lair. Having seen everything before allowed the two to walk with more confidence. They were led into a different area this time that was separated from the storage room, as Kaminari called it, that contained different beings in cages, exhibits. This time the room that the two found themselves in were a large area with two separate areas separated by a large wall. One contained a machine. It looked similar to a fictional generator with two of its antennae pointed down towards a single area. Drive Knight stopped in front of said room and turned to the two teens. I would like to begin experimenting with your quirks and abilities. This machine here currently contains 800 million volts of electricity. It will shoot out those bolts of electricity towards the area designated. I want you to absorb said electricity and release it back out. It will then be reabsorbed by the generators on the walls and fed back into the machine in a continuous loop. Any questions? Drive Knight explained, pointing towards a number of the tech found in the one room before looking towards Kaminari expectantly. Only concerns about the safety of this test? Yaoyorozu asked in Kaminari's place. I assure you that the machine is safe. All he would have to do to stop the cycle is to yell the word stop and the machine would be shut off. He explained, going inside the room and stepping into the designated area. And starting the machine, a blast of electricity blasted him and seemingly was absorbed by his very being. He then began to be shot multiple times by the bolts of electricity before saying stop after being hit by 10 million volts of electricity. He walked out of the room and gestured for Kaminari to go in. The boy shot one glance at his classmate, and then with a nod went into the chamber as Drive Knight closed the door behind him, going to the designated spot where he waited for the machine to begin. I will begin on 1 million volts every 3 seconds. Given your limit of 300 million volts, if my theory is wrong and discharging doesn't improve your time, it will take you 1 minute and 40 seconds to overload. Metal Knight said mechanically. With that he started the machine up. Kaminari raised his finger into the air, preparing for the voltage to rain down. He absorbed the first burst and quickly attempted to discharge the energy before the second volley came. Being able to discharge most before the second volley came, he absorbed it as well and repeated this process for the full minute and 40 seconds, and to Momo's surprise that the robot's theory worked, but just barely. He only lasted for 3 more times before his body started to vibrate. His hands and his thumbs started to move into the same comical position that they normally did when his brain was fried. The machine immediately halted as the last shot rained down. Kaminari had lasted a total of 1 minute and 58 seconds, 18 more seconds than he would have normally, meaning that he had absorbed 6 million more volts than normal. Interesting, was the only thing Drive Knight said. It seems you were right. He did last longer using this method than just absorbing things outright, Yaoyorozu mentioned. With that I had no doubt if his brain was like a capacitor only being able to absorb so much before overloading, it would be simple to deduce that releasing energy would drain the capacitor and leave room to spare for more energy. It could have worked like a mental overload instead. The dual purpose of absorbing and expending, draining his mental capacity faster than normal. Momo mentioned earning a stare from the cyborg's singular eye. A fair observation. It is in luck that it was the latter then. But that is not what I find interesting. What I find interesting is his overloaded state. Why does he choose to get into that pose and perform that action? He questioned the girl. I don't know. He never told us and I doubt he knows either, Momo said with a shrug, only getting a hum in reply from the hero. Is he cognitive enough to understand speech? Drive Knight asked. Not really, no, Momo said, shaking her head. I see. I will leave a bot in his care to explain his next instructions once he becomes able to continue. You on the other hand can follow me, Drive Knight said as he began to walk towards the room next door to the one Kaminari was in. It was a clear white room empty of everything but the two of them inside. He asked her to take a distance of 30 meters before finally stopping and facing him again. Your power is vastly intriguing to me. I would like a demonstration if you would. Obliging, Momo created a simple metal staff coming out of her hand. Interesting. Given that you created a staff first, I assume that is your preferred method of attack. Although the materials you used are brittle. Momo scoffed at the remark about the brittleness of her weapon given that it was made of pure tungsten. I wouldn't call this brittle, but yes, in terms of close quarters combat, I would mostly rely on the staff and shield, she said proudly. The staff that she held was then suddenly cut in half to her shock. She looked at Drive Knight who held up one finger. I destroyed that staff with one finger. I would wager that it is probably of weaker material than of that glass there. What other weapons do you use for combat? For long-range engagements, for example. Momo was still shocked at the revelation that he broke her staff. She didn't even see him move, and did he really believe that simple glass could be stronger than tungsten? Gathering herself, she replied, well, for longer range engagements I can create this cement gun, and for my ultimate attack. Beside her a cannon manifested. That's all, Drive Knight thought. May I see the strength of your cannon? I would assume the ammunition you have makes it stronger than its antique-looking status would imply, Drive Knight said curiously. Are you asking me to shoot you with the cannon? Momo asked worriedly. There is no cause for concern. I doubt that you would be able to hurt me, let alone kill me. So your worry is not warranted. I'm okay if you say so, she agreed, still having doubts about it. She got behind the cannon and created a traditional shot for ammunition. She lined up the shot and fired. To her surprise, she was sure that Drive Knight stepped into the cannon shot that she attempted to slightly angle away from him, instead hitting him dead on in the center. Panicked, she started to run through the dust to see if he was alright, only to reveal Drive Knight still standing there staring at her approach. She slowed her run into a walk and stopped in front of the machine. To her surprise, he didn't have a scratch on his body. What was he made of, she wondered. I am disappointed in your lack of creativity. There are a number of weapons that you could create for a stronger attack and a lot that are not as cumbersome and mass-intensive as that cannon. Do you have a perversion to things such as guns, RPS, or other explosives? Drive Knight inquired. It's not that I don't know of other guns. It's just I've never been properly trained in such positions and I don't want to cause any accidents due to my carelessness. That's a noble answer. Firearms in the hands of someone that is untrained are just as deadly to the wielder as is to the opponent, let alone civilians in the area. In that case, would you like to learn? The hero questioned. I don't know. I don't like the thought of killing someone really, Momo said, rubbing her shoulder. You don't like to kill yet, you want to be a hero. If you remain like that, monsters will take advantage of your weakness and kill you once you let your guard down. You do realize that, right? Monsters don't care for human life and we should not care about them in turn, Drive Knight said. Her statement died in her throat. They were in a different world than where she came from. Whatever these monsters are, they may not be completely sentient beings, just something like animals that kill indiscriminately or out of instinct, and the only way for people to make them stop is to kill them back. If you are truly afraid of killing something, you can additionally create rubber bullets or some other alternative. But I warn you to be careful in this action. You may give them a second chance, but they will not return the gesture. Moving on from firearms for now, we could practice on your staff training. This made Momo raise her head to meet the cyborg in the eyes. Have you practiced with the staff before? No, but I have accumulated the knowledge I have found on techniques and forms that I have online to train you. Suddenly between them a small circle platform opened and from out the hole raised two bow staff, made of some lightweight metal. She took one as Drive Knight took another. She got into a stance as Drive Knight mirrored hers and they began flow like water, Bang, Chiranko, Midoriya, Ajiro. Ajiro was surprised that the traditional opening to Bang's training was a multi-kilometer run around the mountain that was his dojo. He was less surprised at how Midoriya was holding up with it, however. At the start him and Bang were simply gone from sight. He may have thought the two were actually racing to see who finished first. He however was struggling after the first kilometer, but he was ahead of Bang's supposed best student who was struggling just as hard as he was, if not a bit worse than him, which he found particular. Surely he should be used to this training by now. He slowed down somewhat to keep pace with his fellow student. Is this something new he's doing? I would have thought, being a long-time pupil, that you would be used to this by now if this was a regular occurrence every day. It was, but not after what happened. We would just practice forms instead of the full shebang, you know, Chiranko said, gasping as he continued to run. Ajiro nodded in understanding and continued to run next to his fellow disciple. Soon they both felt drafts of wind pass by both of them, which he could only assume were Bang and Midoriya lapping them as they ran past. They finally completed their first lap around the place, only to see Bang and Midoriya waiting by the stairs for the two of them. Bang halted them before they passed. There has been a change of plans. Instead of the usual practice today, Midoriya insists that he wants to go out into the city as he can sense people in danger. Despite my best efforts to assure him that other heroes can take care of it, he insists to go and I shall accompany him. Chiranko, I will leave Ajiro in your care for now. Go over the forms. Even some light sparring if you're up for it. Okay, was Chiranko's only reply, but Ajiro's face was mixed. Can't I come alone with the both of you? He asked, confused. We won't be gone long, I can assure you. You're more compatible with my martial art than your friend here, so I would like for you to practice as much as possible to master it. Ajiro simply nodded his head in understanding, but still seeing the discouraged face on the boy, Bang continued. Don't worry now, you will be able to get out there soon enough. He patted the boy's shoulder as he and Midoriya prepared to leave, disappearing from sight again. Ajiro was still about to continue his run again before noticing Chiranko slowly going up the stairs, quickly stopping and yelling out to the teen. Aren't you going to continue the run? We're only a quarter of the way done. What? You still want to continue? Bang's gone. No point in continuing. Just say that we finished when he gets back. Chiranko said casually. That wouldn't help us improve though. I didn't think laziness was one of Bang's teachings. I would have expected more from Bang's top student. Ajiro said mockingly, getting an annoyed look at the boy on the stairs. Don't disrespect Bang. He never slouches when it comes to his training. Chiranko said, stepping forward threateningly. Really? Well, your lack of discipline can only speak to his lack of teaching skills then. Ajiro shot back, angering the boy more, who stepped forward even more. This is your last warning. Stop disrespecting him. Chiranko said menacingly in front of his fellow disciple's face. Or what? You're gonna run and tell on a teacher that ditches his duties? Ajiro replied with a smirk, which pushed the boy over the edge, launching a punch at him that he dodged and using his tails leaped away, taunting Chiranko to follow him as he ran away, the boy following close behind. Midoriya and Bang launched off from his dojo towards the innermost center towards the city. Bang allowed Midoriya to lead the way just to test out how his danger sense worked. Midoriya was being guided by his danger sense, using the buildings to jump from rooftop to rooftop, using his speed and momentum to continue forwards with Bang close behind. Midoriya stopped, overlooking the streets below. The alarms were already blaring. Monster of threat level tiger detected. Please all civilians evacuate to designated safe areas or bunkers. The monster was already in battle with a hero with a giant hammer in the shape of a meat pounder. The monster was some amalgamation with a lion head with sharp jaws, big chest and bigger arms with a horse-like lower body. The hero attempted to swing its hammer at the creature head, but it was completely blocked by its massive arm and hand. It launched a punch with the other hand, sending the hero flying back into a wall, throwing the weapon behind him and charging at the hero, readying to bite his next. Midoriya exploded into action, using his black whips to wrap around the creature's legs and launched a kick into the creature's side, causing the creature to fly in the direction, hitting and denting a parked car. It shook and rose to its feet, ready to attack again, but before it could, it sensed something was next to it. Looking and seeing an old man, he wanted to use him as a hostage before suddenly losing sight of him and feeling pain all over its body, and shortly after nothing at all. Midoriya rushed over to the hero and asked if he was okay. He told the boy that he was the C-class hero meat pounder before asking for his name. Following the hero's example, he announced that he was the S-class hero Green Menace, but that he could just call him Deku instead. Helping him to his feet, he let the hero walk off after handing him his weapon with his dark whip. Turning his attention towards Bang and the villian that was down next to him, He approached slowly at first, but after realizing that the creature didn't even move and didn't even breathe, he began to run towards it, quickly taking a look and feeling for any signs of life and finding none. Bang just killed this being. Why? Was all Midoriya could say. What was that, my boy? Bang said with such ease, like he didn't know anything was wrong. Why did you kill it? Midoriya looked from the creature to Bang. You have more than enough strength to just knock it unconscious, but you took its life. Why? Well, we are heroes. Is this not our purpose? To get rid of threats to humanity? Bang asked confusedly. But that doesn't mean we have to kill them to do so. Killing should be ... the final measure, Midoriya said, his voice getting lower and lower as he spoke, thinking of what Ada said. Hearing it was one thing, but actually seeing it was another. The creature's bones were completely shattered. It probably had numerous lacerations and internal hemorrhaging and died fairly quickly. Listen, young Midoriya, monsters are not people. They have no sense of morals or society. They will terrorize and kill for pleasure or sport alone, and they almost certainly can't be redeemed. But if you wish to spare some, we can. The association does arrest monsters that can be captured. However, the fate that awaits them under the association is unknown. You may only be prolonging their suffering. Bang warned. If they can get a chance at a new life, then that would be better than ending it prematurely. I will take that chance, Midoriya said somewhat coldly. So be it then. From henceforth I will only knock monsters unconscious, Bang said, moving his hand over his heart. Thank you, Midoriya said, smiling again. With that, they both headed off through the city again, using Midoriya danger sense to locate problems or monsters that they would take care of. Due to the no-killing rule, Bang swore to they would have to wait for the association to arrive and pick up the unconscious monsters, spending more time on locations than was completely necessary. Bang eventually said that it was enough for the day, and Midoriya agreed, no longer sensing danger with his ability, and they both left back towards the dojo, where they found Ojiro looking over Chiranko on the ground. Oh, I see that you two have been sparring in our absence, Bang said nonchalantly as he opened the door. You can say something of that effect. Yes, Ojiro replied, somewhat winded. While Chiranko was nowhere near his master level in the rock-smashing fist, he was further along at it than he was with only a day of training, and he tried to only use techniques and forms from the style against him to give his disciple a fair chance at winning the spar, although to him it probably was a real fight. Well, Chiranko, get up so that I can continue with my lessons, Bang instructed. He begrudgingly sat up and went to the designated area, shooting a look at Ojiro before taking his seat, as did the other two discs beside him. Amphibian and reptile, Asui. As Asui was exiting the common area with everyone else, she was also approached by the bearded agent. Actually, Froppy, I need you to come with me. She casted a glance at her classmates, who all shrugged and looked at the man, and began to follow him towards their destination, getting into an elevator going further down into the association. May I ask what you need me for? Asui asked directly. Well, as you may have become aware of, but in our world we have creatures that we originally called mysterious beings. Originally we assumed them to be composed of beings that were just strange abominations brought upon this other from years before humanity settled into power. But now it has become increasingly obvious as we learn more about them that human as well can transform into these type of beings given certain circumstances. The elevator stopped and the agent began to lead the way again. What would those circumstances be? Asui asked. A number of different things: anger, revenge, ugliness, dissatisfaction with their normal lives, or obsession over an object or item, which brings you here today. Yesterday we managed to pick up a monster that we call Tongue Stretcher the other day. He was once a regular man but transformed into a lizard man due to obsession with them. They stopped in front of a glass window in a containment area. It held some rocks and grass around on a hard metal floor, similar to an exhibit. Inside was the man in question. He had black curly hair with a green letterman's jacket on, with a one shirt underneath, and blue pants. He was distinctly chameleon-like green with a tail behind him. Okay, but what do you want me to do? Asui asked. We would like for you to speak to him, try and persuade him to be more cooperative, and merge back into society. From blood samples taken, his name was Jordan. We assumed that if he spoke to someone more like himself that he would be more open to negotiating. I see, Asui said as she took another glance at the man through the glass before remembering what Dogman and the committee said about monsters and what they do to them. What would happen to him if he refuses to comply? Will you kill him? We haven't decided on what to do with him for now, but if he attempts to cause trouble while you're in there, he will be dealt with, I assure you. You'll be safe. Asui thought about his response. It wasn't a yes or no answer, but he also implied that they did not have any qualms of killing if he got out of hand. She would at least try and save him from that fate if she had the chance. I'll do it, I'll talk to him, Froppy said with a determined nod. Before she was escorted away, she was handed a device with a button on it. which would signal that she needs help and no doubt that the execution team would come in to kill Jordan. She just hoped she wouldn't have to use it. She was led through numerous doors until she was in front of the one that contained Jordan. She was directed inside and the door behind her was locked behind her. She turned to face the other being in the exhibit who locked its eyes on her. Ho ho ho, is this my offering? Did the association hear of my great battle with King? I would have preferred someone a bit older but I'll accept nonetheless, Jordan said, his tongue going across his lips. Offering? Kinasui's eyes widened. The name sounded familiar, wasn't that my current mentor? He said that King was the strongest S-class around and given how Watchdog Man treated monsters, this man must be SDR. Correction, Asui while tongue stretcher did encounter King. He immediately surrendered upon meeting him and was arrested shortly after. He is a relatively weak monster of threat level wolf, the bearded worker said over the intercom. TCH, well, what do you want? Jordan said, his entire tone deflating from the voice. I came just to talk about you getting out of here and returning back to society. Asui said honestly. Why would I want to do that? I'm different now. I am better than all of those normal people. Why should I submit to them now again? They are beneath me. And so are you. He immediately launched his tongue at her, causing Asui to jump up onto the ceiling and stick there upside down staring at Jordan, who stared in shock. Jordan, just because you're stronger now doesn't mean that you're superior to regular people. They still have the same rights that you do. Trust me, I'm just like you can still be accepted. Asui said as she extended her tongue towards the ground and then lifted it back up into her mouth. Is that supposed to change my mind? You're still mostly human. You can still pass off as human. But me, who would accept me? I'm a freak now. Now even when I was a human I was considered a freak. The weird lizard guy. Girls would ignore me. Guys would bully me. And all I wanted to show them were that lizards are cool and interesting, but only being met with ridicule and disdain. I would show them the true power of lizards. I would show all of them. He launched his tongue out again at her, which she dodged and then activated her camouflage. Getting closer to the man. She wanted to tell him that it was okay to be different, but she wasn't really sure if that was the case here. With no quirks, mutants would be impossible here and anything out of the ordinary would be labeled as a monster. Perhaps the Hero Association could help him in that regard. The Hero Association could probably help you with that, Ribbit. You're a fool if you think the Hero Association would help anyone but themselves, he said as he lashed his tongue out towards the sound of Asui's voice. But before he could do more, he was wrapped up behind by Asui's tongue. What makes you say that? She managed to get out before feeling something on her tongue, causing her to immediately attempt to slam Jordan into the wall, releasing her grip on him as he was thrown. He corrected himself in mid-awareness and used his tail to stop his flight as he looked at her, drawing his tongue back into his mouth. Tasty was his only word that came out of his mouth, sending a repulsive chill down Asui's spine. MonsterFicTion must have changed his personality as well. Sue jumped upwards towards the ceiling, then came down with a drop kick using both feet. Jordan just had enough time to block with his arms, sliding back a couple of meters in the process. They're your only chance at a normal life again. Even if you don't trust them, you should be able to realize that much, right? She said as she dodged a tail swipe from the individual. Yeah, life under the association or death. Such a great choice of options, he replied sarcastically, throwing his tongue out and successfully landing it on her right shoulder. He quickly drew her in, but to his surprise she went along with the pull, jumping with it to increase the speed. She closed the distance before he could react. Asui had stuck her hand in his mouth. It had a weird flavor around it. His body immediately clammed up and he suddenly dropped to the floor, unable to move his body, only his eyes as he followed the girl that stood above him. Any type of life that is not constant suffering is better than death. In my world, people like you are considered normal. That might not be the case here, but you can change that with your actions. Ribbit, with your strength I'm sure you can be a hero, and that way you can still show everyone that doubted you before that you are better than they thought. By acting out you're just proving them right. Ribbit, as she finished telling him that, she asked to be let out as she walked towards the door. She was greeted by the bearded worker. You didn't press the button. No, as you said, he was a weak monster. Besides, I still think he can change and I would like to give him the chance to. I see. Well, you are free for the remainder of the day. You may do as you wish. And for a thank you for your cooperation, here you go. He handed her a group ticket coupon for a restaurant for her whole class. Thank you very much. If we are done I will just go back to my room and wash my mouth out preferably. Bearded worker simply nodded, escorting her back to the main elevator. As she went back up, bearded worker was approached by Sitch. The results, somewhat positive. The individual was more open to talking about itself with a like-bodied individual, but it still was emotionally and morally unstable. They fought. Yes, the girl disabled him using some sort of self-generated mucus from her skin. She also said more stuff when he was disabled, but only time will tell if it will have any effect on the monster. Keep me posted on its condition once it's out of its shock, he said as the elevator came back down and Sitch got in. Will do, sir, the all-bearded worker said as the elevator doors closed. Different world, different rules, tank top philosopher Shoji. Shoji was taken back to the tank top headquarters, which he came to realize was just a giant gym. Going by its looks, although it did have the tank top's army branding on it designating it as theirs. But before he began to step into the gym, Tank Top Master and a number of other tank toppers began to emerge from the building. Good, you're here. You're going on patrol today, along with the other tank toppers. You will be with Tank Top Girl and Tank Top Philosopher. Everyone usually roams in two-man teams, but you'll be the exception for now, Tank Master said. Shoji agreed, and with that a number of tank toppers left the gym behind, wishing each other luck and getting into separate vehicles. Seeing the questioning look on his face, Tank Girl spoke. The tank toppers are a continent-wide organization. While our main base of operations is here, we lend aid to all cities across the continent. I see, was all Shoji could say. It's mostly just a way for the tank topper to show off to the citizens around them, Tank Philosopher said as he walked up beside them reading that book of his. Tank Girl immediately snapped at him. Should you really be saying that to our newest member? Don't you want him to have a good impression of us? I see no point in lying to the boy or to myself about how the tank top army operates. I have seen you have concerns for those involved as well, he said without looking up at the girl, who only sighed in defeat. It's not that they aren't good guys, but their ego does tend to get ahead of them from time to time. But they are fearless and would jump into battle at the slightest chance, even if they are outmatched, she said confidently, looking at Shoji. Whether that be from chivalry and dedication or recognition and arrogance is up for great debate, Tank Philosopher added. Would you just be quiet already? Tank Girl said, getting annoyed. Hoping to change the topic and elevate tension, Shoji decided to speak up. So where are we going for patrol today? Turning back around to face the teen, Tank Girl replied. We're going to stay in this city for the day. As for route, we're just gonna kinda wander aimlessly until we hear the alarms blaring, Tank Girl said, rubbing the back of her head. As they began to walk around, Shoji was taking in the surroundings of the city, seeing what seemed familiar and what seemed different from what he was used to back in his world. He occasionally caught glances from people he passed or across from him, staring at him like he was some sort of freak or monster. He probably guessed the reason things didn't exaggerate further was due to the two tank toppers around him. Tank Philosopher must have also seen some of the stares he got because he spoke from behind him. Don't be discouraged by them. They are not used to seeing a unique individual such as yourself. They are close-minded, but as long as you're with us, everything should be fine. Shoji nodded his head and was about to speak when suddenly alarms were raised. A voice was heard over an intercom. Warning. Warning, monster has been detected in Central Avenue. Current threat level wolf, possible escalation to tiger as more information is gathered. Remain calm and avoid the area if possible. Shoji looked around as the announcement played out. At first it seemed the audience was slightly panicked, but upon hearing the monster was classified as a wolf, everyone seemed to settle down and carry on as usual. He found that interesting. He guessed that either wolf-level threats weren't taken seriously, or that the distance from wherever that was to where their current location is were too far to away to get worked up over. Only a wolf level, huh? Well, we should still get over there, just to be sure, Tank Girl said while stretching somewhat. From here, it should take us around 10 minutes to get there if we run, Tank Philosopher said. Well, there goes that theory of distance, Shoji thought, so it only left him with the other theory of just the threat not being rather threatening. You should get stretching too, don't want to have you pulling anything and slowing down, Tank Philosopher said, stretching as well. Shaking Shoji out of his thoughts, he began to stretch like the both of them. Once they were ready, they all ran towards the scene of the attack. To his surprise, he quickly lost sight of Tank Girl, but kept up just fine with Tank Philosopher, and just as he predicted, the two got there 10 minutes from when they started. They arrived to see Tank Girl just sitting down on a police car drinking a protein shake, staring disbelieving at the two new arrivals. What the hell took you both so long? Are those rambling you keep reading affecting your body too? Tank Girl teased. I said it would take us 10 minutes if we both left at full speed. It would leave Shoji alone, causing unnecessary complications, Tank Philosopher said casually. How the hell did you know how fast the kid was? Wait, don't tell me the book, she said with a not convinced look, only receiving a cheeky nod in return. Shoji was more worried about the threat that they were there for. What about the wolf level threat? Why are you just sitting here and not trying to deal with the situation? he exclaimed seriously. Hey, don't take that tone with me, I'm still your senior, don't forget that. It's not my fault really, it's these people, she said, kicking the car she was sitting in. The police won't let you help. Shoji was perplexed. The police and the Hero Association has a great ongoing rivalry. Well, rivalry is too good of a term to describe it. The police has essentially been rendered obsolete because of the Hero Association, losing funding and numerous personnel. As a result, we are not allowed to interfere with each other's affairs and must wait until all of their forces are defeated until entering. Tank Philosopher explained, starting to sit down on the police car as well, opening the book and reading the blank contents. Shoji couldn't believe what he was hearing. The heroes and police were against each other. Shouldn't public safety come first above all else? He looked over to the two heroes, then looked at the police behind them. They had blocked off the street with their cars and were currently engaged with a human-octopus hybrid which had an octopus head with a human body, with 2 regular hands and 6 tentacles coming out from his abdomen down. The last officer was just getting thrown towards the cars they were by when he leapt into action, catching the officer in his elongated arms before placing him on the ground and jumping into the street to face the creature. Seeing Shoji jump into the scene, Tank Girl was about to follow before a hand touched her shoulder, holding her in place. Let the new recruit handle this, Tank Philosopher stated. Are you the next challenger? You want to fight the great Octo Man? The man stated proudly, to Shoji's disbelief at such a dumb name. How about you just calm down and come with me? You caused enough damage to prove whatever point you were trying to make, Shoji asked, trying to reason. Huh? You think you can stop me with such idle talk? The power of the octopus is mine to control, and I will do what I will with it, he said as he launched 3 tentacles of his at Shoji, who countered back by extending out 3 arms of his own, catching each one and holding them in place. Oh, you are really challenging me to an octo-off. Bring it on then, the man said, launching his other 3 tentacles that Shoji countered the same way, before using one of the smaller tentacles from his head to shoot out ink from it to his face, which caught Shoji in the eyes, quickly pulling the teen in towards him as he was off balance from the maneuver, getting ready with his human hands to punch the hero down. I am the Octopus King. You should never have challenged me in my He stopped as he suddenly saw 2 eyes sprout out from the back of the hero. Shoji sprouted 2 more eyes and multiple more hands that caught the punch the villain threw, and returned with a multitude of his own, catching the villain off guard, successfully landing multiple punches over the villain body before finishing within 12 punches to the villain's face that sent him towards the ground, knocking him out. Woohoo, you go new kid, you sure showed him, he heard from behind him from Tank Girl as he turned his created eyes to her while he was still cleaning the gunk from his face, before hearing a gunshot go off, quickly turning to see that it was aimed at him but was stopped by Tank Top Philosopher's book. What do you think you're doing, officer? Tank Philosopher said menacingly. What are you talking about? That guy's clearly a MHA. His sentence was cut off as Tank Philosopher sent the crushed casing on the outer side of his book straight into the officer's gun, destroying it completely. He is clearly with us, the Hero Association, and the Tank Top's newest recruit, Tentacle, he said with venom in his voice, before suddenly throwing the book in front of Shoji, to his shock right at the creature that was getting up and was about to stab him with a spike from his face. Tentacle only to be stopped when his head was completely crushed from the force of Philosopher's throw, making his body fall loosely to the ground. Shoji finally was able to shake the ink from his face before staring at the lifeless body as Philosopher received his book from the man caved in the head. You did well, but you have to make sure you finish off your opponent before turning your attention away from them, he said in a kind manner, seemingly unaware that he just killed a man. Tank Top Girl came up behind him and clasped his shoulder before moving forward. I guess you showed him who really is the King Octopus around here. Onward we go to the next scene, she said as her and Tank Philosopher just carried on, taking one last look at the body before following along behind them. He thought, new universe, new rules indeed. Combat training. Child Emperor, Mina, Gyro. Gyro and Mina both walked into his, what Mina called it, child playpen. They were greeted by one of his machines that lead them towards where they assumed Child Emperor was located, taking extra precaution to walk next to Mina just in case the excitable girl tried to run off at the slightest thing that catches her fancy. They soon spotted the hero, who was in front of a large area that looked like a mixed city street. Mina saw her equipment from yesterday on a table next to the kid and immediately ran towards it. The robot was about to stop her but was halted by Child Emperor. She immediately grabbed the gloves and rubbed them against her cheek. Oh, I miss these things so much. It's only been a day, Child Emperor said dryly. You don't get this as the first support item. I'm actually able to use it because of my quirk. The support course students tried making something, but my acid was always too strong for the material. Mina, Jiru exclaimed worriedly, giving her friend a shushing look. Covering her mouth, Mina just looked like a deer caught in headlights. Turning from her friend back to the hero, who looked somewhat curious about what she was talking, he decided to address the elephant in the room first. You don't have to be so secretive around me. I partially helped build the Hero Association's firewalls, and I left myself some backdoors just in case things happen. I know you and your friends aren't from around here and different from the rest of us, he said, licking his lollipop. So you know how we got here? Gyro questioned. That I don't know. You guys were only logged in as an anomaly. Any further information was either not there or locked down under extreme scrutiny. But if you could tell me, that would be great, Child Emperor said with a cheery smile. We can't, Mina said solemnly, rubbing her shoulder. Yeah, sorry, they made us swear that we keep it secret from everyone, Gyro added. Figured. Well, today, you will be doing combat training against some bots to gather more data and calibrations for your equipment. I tried to implement some of the suggestions you mentioned the other day in the designs, the Child Emperor said, turning to look at the equipment table. Oh, really? Mina said in shock as she put on the gloves in her hand once more. Instead of being complete black metal gloves, they were now fingerless with a similar color scheme to her jacket, with metal caps on each knuckle of her finger. OMG, I'm in love, she said enthusiastically as she turned the gloves in her hands, spectating how they look and feel. Gyro stepped up next to her and took her 2 bracelets and putting them on, watching them as they snapped towards her sonic amplifiers again. She then took the new object, which appeared to be 2 bands that once attached extended to leg bracers that connected to her leg amplifiers and back upwards to the arm amplifiers that were over her jacket. Oh, you asked for something new. Mina was intrigued by her friend's new accessory. Yeah, I wanted a better way for me to transfer from using my upper amplifiers to the bottom one without having to remove my earplugs. Gyro replied. Yes, I managed to comply with that request. There is a switch beneath both of your forearms that will tell you which firing mode is active at a time. There is a blue, yellow, and red indicator on top which will tell you which one you switch to. Blue is for the arms, yellow is for the boots, and red is for both. Keep in mind that each side operates separately. Gyro nodded her head in understanding. What improvements did you get? Gyro asked Mina. Well, nothing major like you, just some cosmetic upgrades and the ability to use my regular moves again. Upon seeing the confused look, Mina elaborated. Well, before I couldn't use anything but those high-powered shots from before, now I can. Right? She asks, turning her attention to the hero behind her friend. Correct. You can still use your normal moves and the gloves still keep a similar functionality as before, but the acid is just stored in the metal containers above the knuckles. They deliver the high pressurized shots and can double as physical enhancement of your punches. To use the pressurized shots, just deploy them by sliding them above your fingers and point while shouting the finger name. Be warned, they contain less than the full gloves like before, so you may need to reload more often than before. Ugh, finger names, Mina said confusingly, rubbing the back of her head. Rolling his eyes, the hero answered her question, while raising a finger for the name. Pinky, ring, middle, index, and thumb. You got it. Yeah, it's just not every day you use those words, I remember now, Mina said. With everything said and done, the two were asked to go into the prop city street and wait for his signal for them to begin. Their goal was to defeat all the enemies in the trial. They both started stretching, getting ready to begin. Suddenly a giant warning sound started to resound around the city, which they guessed was the signal for them to begin. Gyro immediately set her jack towards the nearest wall. She heard the whirling and crunching of machinery. She guessed they were around 4 meters away, just around the corner. She revealed the information to Mina and they devised a plan to jump out and surprise the robots. They launched their attack simultaneously, jumping out. Mina was first to attack using the pressurized shots from her middle and index finger, hitting 2 robots that were shaped like overgrown bees. Gyro opted to attack the ground units, a mixture of animal and humanoid-like robots charging forth. She tried out her heartbeat distortion attack, shaking the ground rapidly and throwing up multiple robots in the air from the rising ground. Mina and her then used them as target practice, using both of their long-range maneuvers. Gyro heartbeats around evolved to form a more narrow sound wave path that could pierce targets. Quickly cleaning up the remaining robots, the two continue on with the trial, sometimes setting up traps with Mina's acid with maximum viscosity, while Gyro used her sound boom to knock them all offline. Another notable moment of the trial was when Mina used all the pressure shots in her glove and completely sliced a building in half, causing both of them to run away from the oncoming debris. Gyro quickly learned that she could artificially jump higher using her arm amplifiers along with the upgraded heartbeat surround pointed straight at the ground, which saved them from the predicament luckily, having Mina express her apologies multiple times as the trial concluded. As they both went back towards the starting area, they had confident smiles on their faces and expressed the same sentiment to the child hero. "We love these things," they said in almost unison, before Mina started to go the extra mile and pick up the child hero, but was stopped by his robot arms from his bag. "Suck it up, Tatsumaki, Uraraka." Uraraka was still training with Tatsumaki, dodging rocks being thrown at her while returning fire with her own, but all that ended up accomplishing was for Tatsumaki to send it back at her even faster. Originally, to counter this maneuver, she would release her hold on the rocks that she threw once she realized they were coming back towards her, slightly throwing off their aim and giving her more room to dodge. Tatsumaki caught on quickly to that, however, and started to maintain her power on the rocks, making them retain their course even after she released her powers on them, sometimes even increasing their velocity even more to keep her on her toes. She dodged and threw the crushed rock around, her stomach flipping with every movement or step. She struggled to keep her balance, dealing with the nausea and occasionally repressing the feeling of barf coming up her throat. Tatsumaki wasn't totally heartless in her training. Every time she would stumble or not be able to dodge in time, she would suddenly advert the direction of the rocks so they didn't fully connect against her, mostly grazing her costume or skin. Other times she would just slow the rock down so the blow, while heavy like a punch to the face, it wouldn't leave the girl concussed. She did much more of the latter than former Uraraka noted. She wasn't going to be too lenient on her, and she wasn't afraid to inflict damage on her either. She was just going through the cycle of attack and evading again, but as she went to dodge, she wasn't keeping a proper track of her surroundings and tripped over some spare rubble around her. The fall caused her nausea to be even worse. She managed to hold the bile back and get on all fours, still attempting to hold back the bile in her mouth while still trying to get out of the way of the incoming rocks. She wasn't fast enough. While most of the rocks were angled away from her, one slow rock hit her directly in the side. The momentum was enough to flip her onto her side, and the area hit caused her to gasp and spew all the contents she was trying to repress. Thankfully, Tatsumaki powers were highly versatile. She was able to essentially take all the bile that would have ended up on her face and hair as she was flung on her back instead just disappeared as it left her mouth. She was so precise, in fact, that she didn't even have the bad breath that came with puking, which saved her time on brining breath mints and mouthwash along with her for training. The minor comfort of that fact contrasted with the pain and soreness that came to her ribs from the blow she just received. Clutching at the area as she looked up into the sky that now contained the heroine herself, sneering down at her. "In battle, you should always keep an eye on your surroundings, especially someone like you, floaty girl," she yelled down at Uraraka. "Easy for you to say," Uraraka mumbled under her breath. "What was that?" Tatsumaki yelled, picking up some nearby rocks and raising them threateningly at the girl on the ground. "Nothing, nothing," she said, panicking, raising her hand and trying to stand, only agitating the injury she just had, causing her to just lay back down, instead focusing on her breathing and resting somewhat for their next steps. She suddenly found herself glowing green and lifting off and away. "Where are we going?" she asked as she was flying through the air with Tatsumaki. The heroine turned around in a relaxed pose. "Training is one thing, but you need actual combat experience fighting real monsters. Besides, I'm getting bored anyways just throwing rocks around," Tatsumaki said with a sly smile, turning back around and beginning to fly faster. The two heroines touched down in the park of City L. The alarms were already blaring of multiple monster attacks. One of threat level demon and two of threat level wolf and one threat level tiger. "I'll take care of the demon. You deal with the small fry," Tatsumaki said as she flew away towards the direction of large billowing smoke in the distance. She was surprised that she would just leave her there alone by herself. She then yelped as the heavy rocks from their training landed next to her. She thought about where she would find these small fry she was talking about, only to hear some screaming coming from behind her. She turned around to find the source of the scream and found where it came from, just to be shocked by the sight of a man with the upper body of a fish closing in on a woman and child. She immediately used the rocks next to her and threw one at the man, successfully landing the attack, which knocked the attacker off his feet into the wall. Uraraka immediately went to check if the woman and child were okay, and after thanking her they ran away. The fishman shook itself off from its impact and glared at Uraraka. It made some sort of sound, but it was unrecognizable to her. It then charged at her directly. She tried to throw more rocks at the man. It managed to dodge 2 of them but was caught by 2 others in the chest and face. Uraraka then released her quirk on the 2 that connected, and the rocks inflicted more damage on the man as they fell on him and bounced off towards the ground. The maneuver seemed to have knocked the creature out. She went over and smiled at herself as this was the first villain she beat by herself. A flicker from the corner of her eye caught her attention, quickly jumping away from the fishman as another villain came in and charged her. This one was more humanoid than the other, but his arms were like 2 swordfish noses. His body was all blue and was covered in scales. He charged at her with a battle cry. Uraraka used her last 2 rocks to try and stop his charge, but he knocked both to the side, barely inconvenienced. He tried to stab her with 1 sword, and relying on her gun-head martial arts, she sidestepped the blade while drawing closer to the fishman, tagging him with her quirk and tripping him, sending him spiraling through the air. He quickly recovered and stabbed his hands into the ground to launch back at her. Uraraka ducked under the attack and used all her strength to launch the villain in the air, leaving him constantly going upwards, but his momentum was suddenly stopped by something shooting through the air to catch him and land back on the ground. The new arrival stepped up to face her. He was fully humanoid and bulky, with fins coming off his legs and head, and one of its arms was that of a crab claw. "So you're the one that's been giving my brothers a hard time, huh?" the fishman said. "Who are you guys and why are you attacking people?" Uraraka asked. "Us? We are the future, human and sea folk combined to create the new rulers of the earth. We call ourselves the Seaman. I will be the leader," Kraken the creature said, brandishing its claw towards Uraraka, who would have found their group name humorous, but this was no time for games. "Join us. All you have to do is eat the remains of the sea folk and you too will take on the next evolution of life. Refuse and you will die like the rest." Uraraka was steadily backing up as Kraken approached her, trying to get towards her supply of rocks she left in the park. Spotting the obvious ploy, Kraken responded immediately. "So be it then." A beam of water shot out of his mouth, which Uraraka rolled out of the way. She began to sprint towards the area with the rocks and using her quirk on the 8 heavy objects and began to turn around again. She recoiled slightly as Kraken was already in her face, and swinging his crab claw at her, she raised 1 rock in front of her to mitigate some of the damage, but the strike still connected against her cheek, shattering the rock in the process and sending her flying back. She quickly used her ability on herself and an intense pang of nausea hit her at once, but she remained focused. Rolling her body to get her feet to brace against the parked car, she landed against the door and stopped, releasing herself and dodging to the left as another burst of water came at her. It hit the car and pushed it through to the other side of the street, crashing into the wall of a nearby store. Kraken quickly closed the distance between the two and swung down hard with his crab arm, only missing barely as she stepped into the swipe, attempting the same maneuver as before, but Kraken caught her hand that was reaching to touch him and swung her around before throwing her away, her back hitting a telephone pole and sending a shock up her spine. Kraken began laughing. "Don't you see how futile it is to face me?" he said triumphantly. Uraraka, not giving up, stood once more and threw all of the rocks in her possession at Kraken, who only responded with another burst of water from his mouth, completely destroying the rocks entirely, forcing Uraraka to jump out of the way again. He was on her in that instant. Before she could recover, he kicked her in the stomach, sending her rolling. She turned the roll into a crouching position, but was shocked to see that Kraken was already above her, about to bring his claw down, but was confused when she realized he wasn't looking at her anymore but above. Turning her head, she saw none other than Tatsumaki. "Well, I guess that's your limit, huh?" she mumbled under her breath as she was mostly watching Uraraka fight the entire time, easily killing the demon monster in 1 second and returning to spectate the young girl. "You've done enough," Tatsumaki said to Uraraka as she snapped her fingers, and all Uraraka saw was a swirling vial of blood, then nothing of the being that was Kraken, who was standing before her moments prior. She mentally lapsed for a moment and stood up, looking for where he went or signs of the other 2 brothers as well, only to see nothing. Her mind thought back on Tatsumaki powers and what she can do with them, but that's impossible, right? She wouldn't. "Hey, are you spacing out again? What did I tell you about being mindful of your surroundings? Hey, are you listening?" the girl nagged as she hovered in front of Uraraka. What did you do to them?" Uraraka's voice was steady, solemn. "They're dead, of course. Why would you ask such a?" Her sentence was cut short as she looked at the girl, who seemed shocked by the information and got agitated. "Oh, no, don't tell me. You don't like killing. That's literally all there is to being a hero. We protect the weak by getting rid of the pests that seek to hurt them." If you can't handle that, you should really try out another profession," she said simply. Uraraka was shocked to hear so little sympathy come from the hero, like she didn't care that she just extinguished a life forever without a second thought and with such ease. She would want to argue or debate, but just 2 days with her tells her that it would go nowhere fast. "Okay," was all she said stoically. Tatsumaki only rolled her eyes in response and carried Uraraka back to their training area. The girl was silent the entire time on the journey as she watched the city below her. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 5. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Lumpe Spark 3 on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.